Chapter 109. Then what should we do? Mulan quickly asked. How do they find us? Chu Li said, they should have a tracking master. Senior Zhao, it's useless to hide anymore. We can only fight. Zhao Qingshan frowned and looked at him, then at Co. Sure. Lady, let's lure them away. Yes. Co. Sure nodded. Zhao Qingshan said, Elder Gua, I'll leave this to you. Can you guys do it? Be more reliable. Mulan scoffed. Don't let them lure us away and make us all the scapegoats. There's still a chance of survival if we lure them away. Zhao Qingshan said. All right. Hurry up. Mulan waved his hand. Zhao Qingshan and the others floated out of the cave and rushed up the mountain. They let out a long whistle at the top of the mountain. Chu Li watched through the omniscient mirror. 14 people surrounded the top of the mountain. 6 were in front and 8 were behind. They quickly reached the top of the mountain and fought with Zhao Qingshan and the others. The 8 innate masters tactfully left the battlefield. From Zhao Qingshan's point of view, the 8 innate masters were their weakness. They rushed towards the 8 innate masters. 6 grandmasters tried to stop them, while the innate masters tried to escape. However, it was like sheep running into wolves. Zhao Qingshan took the opportunity and hit a middle-aged man 20 feet away. The middle-aged man was like he was hit by a flying boulder. He flew out and spat out a mouthful of blood. He fell to the ground and did not move. The other 7 innate masters were terrified. They ran for their lives and soon disappeared in front of Zhao Qingshan and the others. The 6 grandmasters also tried to stop them. If Zhao Qingshan and the others killed people in front of them, they would not be able to face anyone. The 12 grandmasters were locked in battle. Invisible palm energy and fist energy intertwined in the air, causing sand and stones to fly and leaves to swirl in the air. It was as if a violent wind was blowing. The momentum was extremely shocking, and it scared the 7 innate masters so much that they did not dare to come close. Chu Li frowned. The 7 innate masters gathered together and headed toward him. Chu Li's expression suddenly changed. Mulan said, What's wrong, Chu Li? Why do you keep changing your expression? Chu Li quickly put his index finger in front of his lips. Elder Gua. Mulan's expression changed too. He lowered his voice. Have they found us? Chu Li nodded with a serious expression. Mulan frowned and turned to leave. Chu Li quickly blocked him. Mulan was afraid that Chu Li's body was weak, so he dared not use too much strength. Chu Li whispered, Let me do it. Are you crazy? Mulan lowered his voice and shouted, Don't you know what's going on? You still want to fight? Chu Li said, I know what I'm doing. Like how I know. Mulan cut him off. Chu Li smiled and shook his head. Co. Sure whispered, You guys want to fight? There's no need for that. Shika-chan. Mulan turned to look at her. Xiao Sure said, Lu Yurong wouldn't dare to kill me. Elder Gua, take Chu Li away. Xiao Sure, don't talk nonsense. Mulan said angrily. Xiao Sure chuckled. Lu Yurong is so smart. She knows the consequences of doing this. If she kills me, Big Brother will definitely start a war. Chu Li looked at Co. Sure. Xiao Sure glared at him. Say it. It's already come to this. Chu Li sighed. I'm just afraid that Lu Yurong is trying to provoke Master Xiao Tying. Xiao Shure's eyes narrowed as she pondered. Chu Li sighed to himself. Fate was really hard to predict. It gave the third lady unparalleled beauty, intelligence, and wisdom. Unfortunately, it did not give her a healthy body. Compared to the latter, she would rather not have the former two. Chu Li gently pushed Mulan away and went to the entrance of the cave. He looked at the 7 innate masters that were slowly approaching. 400 meters, 300 meters, 200 meters, 50 meters, 40 meters, swoosh, swoosh. Chu Li swung both of his hands at the same time. 2 beams of cold light shot out. He spat out a mouthful of blood and staggered backward. He leaned against the stone wall and used the stone wall to support his body. The blade pierced through the air and instantly pierced through the throats of 2 masters. They covered their throats and widened their eyes unwillingly. They fell to the ground with their faces facing the sky. The other 5 were shocked and quickly retreated 100 meters. They hid behind the rocks and looked left and right. Chu spat out a mouthful of blood. His face was pale, but his expression was calm, as if he was not the one who was hurt. Mulin shook his head and sighed at Co. Sure. Co. Sure understood what he meant. Chu was going to die. As the lady of the public house, it was her duty for the protectors to sacrifice themselves to protect her. Although she was grateful, she would not feel too much about it. Everyone had their own destiny. Smart people cherished their own bodies. Chu was so smart that he calmly faced death. It suddenly moved her. Chu leaned against the stone wall and sighed. His meridians that had improved greatly were damaged again. They were on the verge of collapse. He might really become a cripple. However, he was very confident in the scripture of life and death. With the scripture of life and death, no matter how damaged his meridians were, he could still recover. Even if his martial arts were to be completely crippled, it would not be a big deal. Turbulent spiritual energy flowed from the mountain, nourishing his body and healing his injuries. Mulin took out a jade bottle from his pocket. He poured out the only red pill and passed it to Chu. Chu directly stuffed it into his mouth. A stream of clear air went straight to his lower abdomen and turned into a rolling hot current. His whole body felt like it was immersed in hot water. It was extremely hot. His body suddenly felt a lot more relaxed. He felt like he was walking on air. His injuries were instantly reduced by half. Mulin shook his head and glanced at the two exquisite flying knives in Chu-Li's hands. No matter how good the medicine was, it could not stop him from doing this. He could only do his best. The scene outside appeared in Chu-Li's mind. Zhao Qingshan and the others were in a stalemate. The 6 grandmasters of the Rin public house were obviously trying to entangle them. They took a defensive position. Zhao Qingshan and the others were anxious and kept attacking. The 5 innate masters were all dressed in gray. After lying on the ground for a while, they once again crouched down and jumped towards a cave. They could vaguely guess the direction of the flying knives. TSK tisk. 2 cold lights shot out again. 2 innate masters fell to the ground with their hands on their throats. They were dead. The remaining 3 quickly crouched down and hid behind a rock. They did not dare to move. Cold air was coming out of their bodies. 4 of them died, and they did not even see the opponent. They had heard from their superiors that they should be careful. Chu was very powerful. They had already raised their guard. They did not think that Chu was even more powerful than they had imagined. Blood gushed out from the corner of Chu-Li's mouth. His face was pale. He slid down to the ground like a pile of mud. The 3 of them crouched behind the rock and looked at each other. They all had the intention to retreat. "Go. Let's go," one of them said. The other 2 nodded. They crouched down and quietly retreated. After retreating 100 meters away, they ran towards the top of the mountain. Zhao Qingshan saw that they had returned. His face changed. He attacked even more fiercely. He was ready to die together with them. A grandmaster of the Rin public house shouted, "Young son, did you find him?" An innate master said with a bitter face, "Sir Meng, there are only 3 of us left. Chu killed 4 of our brothers. Where is he? He should be nearby. You didn't see him?" No. Useless." The grandmaster knew what was going on. They were scared away. He shouted, "Call the others over." "Yes." The Xiantian expert took out a signal tube from his bosom and threw it into the sky. It immediately exploded and formed a red cloud that didn't disperse. Zhao Qingshan and the others' faces changed. Chapter 110. Hearing the sound of an explosion, Mulin crawled to the entrance of the cave and carefully looked outside. He saw the red clouds in the sky that did not disperse. His expression changed drastically. "Oh no, those guys have called for reinforcements." Chu-Li's face was pale, but he smiled. Mulin touched his wrist and sighed helplessly. "I'm still breathing. Your life is really tough, to be able to withstand so much pain." Chu-Li smiled with difficulty. "It's all thanks to Elder Mulin's pill. Sai, I only have one. If I don't have one more and you attack me again, not even Deluo Jinxian can do anything about it." Mulin frowned in pain and scoffed. "Don't try to be brave anymore." Chu-Li said, "It's better to die like this than to be killed by others." "That's true." Mulin nodded. He turned to Co. Sure and said, Young Sure, it looks like we're going to die here. CO Sure smiled calmly. If we die, then so be it. Death was a form of relief. Living was suffering and despair. There was no difference. Chu Li said, Elder Mulin, there's always a way out. At this time, there's still a way out? Mulin scoffed. Elder Zhao and the others are too much. Chu Li said, if it wasn't for Elder Zhao and the others, we would have been dead. Only grandmasters could deal with grandmasters. Without Zhao Qingshan and the others, he could only kill one, but not two. He would have died for sure. Bang! A dull sound echoed in the sky. It sounded like thunder in spring. Mulin quickly looked up and said in disbelief, It's our signal. How can it be ours? CO Sure said, Qingshan can't be that fast, right? Chu Li smiled. It's the third lady. CO Sure was extremely smart. She immediately understood the situation. She looked at him deeply. Looks like you're prepared. Hai Qingshan went back, and CO Chi came back. It was impossible for her to be this fast. She must have intercepted Hai Qingshan on the way here. Chu Li said, I left a mark along the way. The lady will be able to find us. The third sister must have been on guard against Liu Yurong. CO Sure nodded and said slowly. They fought a few rounds and understood each other. Elder Mulin, is his injury really okay? You won't die, but you won't live well. Mulin glared at Chu Li. Chu Li was not too worried. The life and death scripture was mysterious and endless. He could handle it. He suddenly smiled. Third miss is here. Guomulin leaned against the entrance of the cave and looked around. Where is it? A clear whistle resounded, like a crane soaring through the 9 heavens, and a white figure fluttered over. Mulin laughed. It really is the third lady. Chu Li let out a long sigh of relief. His body was completely limp as he leaned against the stone wall. Mulin parted the green vines and waved his hand. A white shadow flashed, and the entrance of the cave darkened. A faint fragrance floated in the air as Shao Qi, who was dressed in white, appeared in front of them. Elder Gua, second eldest sister. A smile appeared on Shao Qi's cold face. Are you all right? CO Sure shook her head lightly. I'm fine. CO Chi's bright eyes fell on Chu Li, as if the cave was lit up. Her slender eyebrows furrowed slightly. Mulin said, Chu Li's injuries are very serious. He needs to recuperate. His martial arts can be considered as crippled. It's good that he's alive, Shao Qi said. Chu Li gave a fist salute and smiled bitterly. My lady, Shao Qi said, let's go. Guomulin carried Chu Li on his back, while Shao Qi helped CO Sure up. The 4 of them came down from the cave and landed in front of a group of innate masters. Hai Qingshan quickly greeted CO Sure, my lady. CO Sure nodded gently. Chu Li glanced at the 20 or so innate masters. All of their eyes were shining with killing intent. They were all elites who had been through many battles. Qingshan, go and bring the carriage here, Shao Qi said. Hai Qingshan gave a fist salute and rushed out. The carriage arrived quickly. It was the same carriage without a compartment. Shao Qi helped CO Sure up. After CO Sure sat down, she said, let Chu Li come up with us. Chu Li did not reject. Guomulin placed him in the carriage and jumped onto the carriage driver's seat. Shao Qi said, I'll go and see Elder Zhao and the others. Chu Li quickly said, my lady, there's no need to go. The battle scene of Grandmasters was similar to the battlefield in the future. Stray bullets flew everywhere, and one could get hurt if they were not careful. Shao Qi's martial arts was high, but she was still an innate master. It was too dangerous to get close. Shao Qi glared at him and fluttered away. Chu Li shook his head helplessly. Through the omniscient mirror, he saw Shao Qi fluttering up the mountain. Without hesitation, she went into the fierce battle between the 12 people. The long sword on her waist flashed, and she stabbed at a red-haired elder. It was Zhao Qingshan's opponent. Zhao Qingshan was shocked and quickly called out, Third Lady. He was shocked. This was a battle between grandmasters. An innate master would be courting death if he came. If anything happened to the Third Lady, he would not be able to redeem himself even if he died 100 times. His opponent showed a disdainful smile and pointed his finger. Chi, with a light whistle, A finger energy shot through the air towards Xiao Qi. Xiao Qi used a strange step technique and moved forward to avoid the finger energy. The tip of her sword stabbed at the red-haired elder. The red-haired elder was shocked. Her step technique was a little strange, but he did not care much. An innate master was not a problem. He struck out with his palm, and the surging palm energy collided with the long sword. He expected the long sword to fly out of his hand. The tip of the sword faced the palm energy like a fish swimming against the current. The palm energy made the sword even faster. Before the red-haired elder could react, the tip of the sword had already pierced through his palm. She quickly retreated behind Zhao Qingshan. Zhao Qingshan saw the opportunity and attacked wildly, not giving the red-haired elder a chance to stop the bleeding and heal. No matter how powerful a grandmaster was, he would not be able to withstand the bleeding. He quickly retreated and looked for help. The deadlock was broken. "Go!" the red-haired elder shouted. The 6 of them disappeared in front of the crowd like a tornado. Xiao Qi was afraid that they would go after Chu Li and the others. She quickly said, "Go back." Zhao Qingshan and the others quickly returned to the crowd. When they realized that everyone was fine, they let out a long sigh of relief. If Xiao Qi did not personally bring people to help, the consequences would be unimaginable. The crowd continued to move forward. Soon, they arrived at a small town. They got 2 carriages, one for Xiao Shi and one for Chu Li. Chu Li laid on the carriage, swaying. The spiritual force from all directions kept entering his body, nourishing his body and alleviating his discomfort. His internal injuries were not light. Even the slightest movement would cause unbearable pain. The life and death scripture had endless uses. He could clearly see his injuries rapidly healing and his meridians were slowly strengthening. While he was bored, he suddenly had an idea. He multitasked. He controlled the surging spiritual force to nourish his body while visualizing the art of white tiger portrait. The invisible force from the void rushed in and strengthened his body. The spiritual force of the life and death scripture was like wine, while the energy of the art of white tiger was like medicine. When the two were combined, the effect was multiplied. When he felt tired, he stopped visualizing and looked at his body with the omniscient mirror. He realized that his injuries had healed a lot. The effect was far beyond his imagination. With this method, he was confident that he would only need 6 to 7 days to recover. Chapter 111. The curtain of the carriage suddenly moved and a fragrance drifted in. Xiao Qi appeared in front of him. Chu Li stopped channeling and struggled to sit up. "My lady." Xiao Qi waved her hand and gestured for him to lie down. She said, "All right, Chu Li, the hero saves the damsel in distress." Chu Li smiled bitterly. Xiao Qi looked at him. "Your martial arts are crippled. What are your plans?" She already understood what happened through Guomyuan. She had mixed feelings. Chu Li was smart, strong in martial arts, and had amazing talent in spirit herbs. In the future, he would be her right-hand man. That was why she painstakingly trained him to increase his experience. She did not think that this arrangement would have such consequences. He risked his life to protect second elder sister. She did not know what to say. It was not a big deal to cripple his martial arts. To him, talent in spirit herbs and a smart mind were the most important. Martial arts was not that important. As long as his status was high enough, there would naturally be protectors. She was afraid that Chu Li would become decadent because of this. Martial arts meant everything in this world, especially to a man. It meant dignity. Without strong martial arts, no matter how powerful he was, it would be like a floating cloud. Otherwise, her father would not have isolated himself all year long and abandoned the position of High Duke in order to break through to the enlightened mastery's boundary. His martial arts was crippled because he saved second elder sister. In the end, it was her fault. It made her feel guilty. Chu Li smiled. "My lady, it's not that serious. Elder's medical skills are amazing." Xiao Qi shook her head. She thought that he did not want to accept the situation. She said, "Calm down and recuperate. Don't think too much. I still need your help." Chu Li said, "It's a pity that I didn't see Lu Yurong this time. She won't show up easily. She won't let others gossip about her, Xiaoqi said. The High Duke's public houses were not allowed to fight. This was a rule set by the imperial family. They did not want to waste the country's power because of internal strife, which would cause them to lose control of the martial arts world. No matter how they planned or assassinated, it would be covered up. Once Lu Yurong showed up, it would be a real weakness. Chuli frowned. What about the High Duke's public house? It's okay if the Grand Duke doesn't leave the public house. Chuli frowned. Master CO is impulsive and emotional. It is too easy to move him. Master CO is impulsive and emotional. It is too easy to move him. Xiaoqi smiled. Big brother won't be fooled so easily. He's still calm during crucial moments. Her eldest brother was usually impulsive, but when it came to the big picture and the responsibility was on his shoulders, he knew what was important and would not act recklessly. She was very relieved. Chuli was relieved when he saw how confident she was. Xiaoqi took out a white jade porcelain and handed it to him. This is a spirit blessing pill. Try it. Chuli took it. Thank you, lady. When we return this time, you should stay on the island obediently. Xiaoqi said, it might not be a bad thing. Chuli smiled bitterly. It'll be very boring. Life will be boring. You'll have something to do, Xiaoqi said. Chuli perked up. Xiaoqi noticed the change in his expression and shook her head. Do you like being an official that much? Chuli smiled. Compared to martial arts, I prefer power. This kind of power is more wonderful. Power is better than martial arts. Chi asked. Chuli smiled. I'm lazy by nature, and power is more to my liking. Everything will be done by others, and I don't have to do it myself. Xiaoqi said. Then you could be the chief of Gloriesville Courtyard. Gloriesville Courtyard? Chuli thought for a while. I don't think there's one in the public house. I'm going to build Gloriesville Courtyard when I return, Xiaoqi said. It'll be the inner courtyard of Jade Guardian Island. My courtyard, Chuli smiled bitterly. Xiaoqi nodded. Why? Do you think the official position is too small? Chuli quickly waved his hand. Why do you want to build Gloriesville Courtyard, lady? Your courtyard is gradually becoming popular. There's no such thing as an impenetrable wall in this world. Instead of people prying, it's better to display it openly, Xiaoqi said. Wonderful. Chuli praised and thought about it. People are so ignorant that they often turn a blind eye and divert their attention. They won't be able to see the true use of Gloriesville Courtyard. The existence of Gloriesville Tree would make Gloriesville Courtyard a treasure trove of rare spirit herbs. Instead of letting people doubt this, it was better to use other things to divert their attention and cover their eyes. To cover the eyes of others, walls would not work, but other things could. People's hearts were the easiest to be deceived. Xiaoqi said, in addition to supervising the public house's rules, I'm also responsible for eliminating spies. I'm going to assign the spies to Gloriesville Courtyard. Chuli looked at her in surprise. The matter of spies was very important. It was the most confidential matter. After all, he had only been in the public house for a short time. How could he be in charge of this matter? Xiaoqi said, you're very observant of people's hearts. You're the most suitable person for this matter. Chuli sighed. I'm afraid there'll be a lot of resistance. You don't have to worry about that. Just do it well. I believe Big Brother will agree. Xiaoqi said. Thank you, lady. Chuli, of course, did not refuse and closed fist saluted. Xiaoqi said, think carefully about what you need. Once you return, you'll start working. Yes. Chuli nodded. Xiaoqi stood up and left. Chuli smiled. He had finally come into contact with power. This was a blessing in disguise. He opened the jade porcelain and found a total of 3 snow-white pills. They were the size of a longan. After taking one, he instantly felt a surge of heat throughout his body. His injuries recovered a lot. This spirit blessing pill was definitely not an ordinary item. While his body was still warm, he activated the sentient menace. Traces of heat flowed in his body and floated towards the invisible meridians. A solid and heavy feeling rose in his heart. It was as if the meridians had become tangible objects. They were constantly being strengthened and became thicker and tougher. A golden glow appeared on his body. At first, it was a pale yellow, then a golden yellow, and then a purplish gold. His whole body seemed to have turned into a purplish gold statue. The door curtain moved, and Mulin entered the carriage. The golden glow on Chu Li's face quickly disappeared. Mulin sat down and reached out his hand to touch Chu Li's wrist. He suddenly looked at him in surprise. Chu Li said, "Lady Xiao, give me a bottle of spirit blessing pill." Mulin snatched it away and opened the jade porcelain. He looked at it and sniffed it. He looked intoxicated. Spirit blessing pill. Lady Xiao is really good to you. Chu Li smiled, but did not say anything. Mulin stuffed the jade porcelain and carefully passed it to him. Take it. It's the spirit blessing pill. It's a life-saving item. Chu Li said, "What's the effect of the spirit blessing pill?" "As long as you're still breathing, you'll be able to hang on for a day." Mulin scoffed. "Think about it. For martial arts practitioners, one spirit blessing pill is equivalent to one life." Chu Li suddenly understood. Mulin stared at him fiercely. "The spirit blessing pill is not the right treatment for your illness. Your meridians are damaged, but your body is recovering well. You won't die. Taking this is a waste of God's gift." "Then I won't eat it. Keep it." Mulin scoffed. "You'll need it in the future." Chu Li smiled. "Elder Mulin, will my martial arts really not recover? What's so good about martial arts?" Mulin stared at him. "Fighting and killing. Sooner or later, you'll die by the sword. You're doing well now. You can stay in the public house and live peacefully for the rest of your life. That's your blessing." Chu Li smiled. "Looks like Elder Mulin has a way." "No." Mulin scoffed. Chu Li laughed. "That's true. With my current situation, most people really can't do anything." Mulin clenched his teeth. "Brat, such a cheap trick. I won't fall for it." Chapter 112. Mulin glared at him, stroked his beard, and scoffed. "If you want to talk about a way, I do have one." Chu Li glanced at him suspiciously, then turned his head away. Mulin stared at him and shouted, "Why, you don't believe me?" Chu Li said lazily, "I know you're not confident. Elder Mulin, if you don't dare to use it, what's the point of listening?" "Bullsh asterisk T." Mulin scoffed. "Why wouldn't I dare to use it?" Chu Li smiled. "Tell me about it." Mulin scoffed. "Have you heard of the 9 transformation meridian reforming technique?" Chu Li shook his head. "Never heard of it." "You don't know medicine? Of course you haven't heard of it." Mulin squinted at him, his face full of disdain. "Elder Mulin, although I've never learned medicine, I have some understanding of it. You know medicine? I've read a lot of medical books and memorized some of it." "Then let me ask you, what's with the flood pulse?" "Heat. Fine pulse. In deficiency, blood deficiency. You know a little. Flood pulse and multiple pulses appear at the same time. High heat. You have some ability to talk on paper." Mulin's expression relaxed, and he stroked his beard. "Looks like you like medicine too." Chu Li smiled and nodded. Of course, he would not say that he learned medicine to learn martial arts. At that time, in order to speed up his foundation building, he thought of all kinds of methods. He wanted to solve it through medical skills and memorized all the medical skills he had seen. In the end, he still relied on the life and death scripture. The 9 transformation meridian reforming technique is not an ordinary acupuncture technique. Mulin sighed. It's a magical acupuncture technique that can change heaven and earth. Changing heaven and earth. Chu Li pondered, could it be a cleansing of the marrow, changing the tendons and bones? Well, it's about the same. Mulin stroked his beard and nodded. He said uncomfortably, "But the most important thing is the meridian, the tendons and bones. I understand the meridian reforming technique." Chu Li smiled and nodded. "It's specifically for foundation building, right?" "That's right." Mulin said slowly. "Think about it. Other people need 10 years to build their foundation, but this acupuncture technique only needs a few days or even half a day. It's so magical." Chu Li was surprised. "In such a short time?" Mulin stroked his beard and nodded proudly. "That's impossible, right?" Chu Li muttered. "If it's really that amazing, why haven't I heard of it before?" Cough, cough. Mulin coughed twice and said helplessly, "This set of acupuncture techniques is too dangerous. It's either life or death. Building one's foundation is not about risking one's life. There's no need to take such a big risk. Of course, no one uses it." Those who missed out on foundation establishment should dare, right? Who would miss out on foundation establishment? Mullen looked at him strangely. Foundation building heart cultivation methods are everywhere on the streets. You can just pick any one of them. Even the poorest people will be able to practice it, unless they are not suited for martial arts. Chuli came to a realization and could not help but shake his head. He missed out on building his foundation because he was in seclusion in the temple, studying the scripture of the great wisdom transcending origin. He didn't have the heart to care about other things, so he didn't think about practicing martial arts. In today's world, building one's foundation was like getting vaccinated in modern society. It was a necessary step and really wasn't a rare thing. Mullen said, "This set of acupuncture is perfect for your current situation, but it's too dangerous. I've been hesitating on whether to use it or not. I still think it's better not to say it." Where's the danger? The acupuncture points must be identified accurately. There can't be a single mistake. Mullen shook his head. You've read medical books before. You should know that everyone's acupuncture points are different. There are subtle differences, and the 9 transformation meridian reforming technique requires every acupuncture point to be accurate. Even the slightest mistake will be fatal. Chuli pondered and nodded. He could see through the human body. Of course, he knew that everyone's acupuncture points were different, just like how everyone's height was different. Elder Mullen, can I learn this set of acupuncture techniques? Why do you want to learn this? I think this set of acupuncture techniques is amazing. I want to study it, Chuli said. I want to find out how it changes the meridians. It's fine if you learn it, but you're not allowed to use it, Mullen scoffed. He couldn't give himself acupuncture, so he was not worried that Chuli would mess around. He also wouldn't let others use it. It was no different from killing someone. Chuli was overjoyed. Thank you, Elder Mullen. Wait, I'll go get it for you. Mullen got off the carriage and quickly came back. He handed Chuli a thin booklet with the words 9 Transformation Meridian Reforming Technique written on it. Chuli flipped through it. There were 13 pages, 109 acupuncture points. The acupuncture technique for each acupuncture point had strict requirements. The needle depth, silver, gold, wood, turning, straight, deep and then shallow, or shallow and then deep, or soft, and then deep, or soft, and then deep, or soft, and then deep. Chuli flipped through it again. He closed his eyes and thought about it. The pages were clearly imprinted in his mind. He raised his head and looked at Mullen. He met his mocking gaze. Chuli smiled. It's quite complicated. Now, you know how powerful it is? Mullen scoffed. Do you think medical skills are that simple? Has Elder Mullen used this set of acupuncture techniques before? No. Mullen shook his head. I'm old. When I got this acupuncture technique, I was too old. My memory has deteriorated and I can't remember it. Moreover, it's too exhausting. I can't persist, and it'll cost people their lives. Chuli smiled. How about I try? You? Mullen laughed and shook his head. Let's not talk about whether or not you can identify the acupuncture points. Let's talk about these acupuncture techniques. Do you know them? Elder Mullen can teach me, Chuli said. Mullen scoffed heavily. Do you think it's that easy to learn? What's the harm in learning? All right, I'll teach you, but I'll only teach you once. If you can't learn it, then forget it. Thank you, Elder Mullen. Mullen angrily took out the box of needles and explained to Chuli which were the long needles and which were the short needles. Then he demonstrated how to use the needles in one go. After that, he passed one of the long needles to Chuli. Chuli smiled and demonstrated again. There was no mistake in the acupuncture technique. Mullen curled his lips. Young man, you're not being honest. You've learned it before, haven't you? Chuli shook his head. Mullen scoffed. All right, even if you haven't learned it before, there's more. Then, he used the force-feeding method to explain to Chuli all his insights and special techniques in using needles. Chuli repeated it word for word. This made Mullen understand that Chuli had a photographic memory. He was as gifted as the third lady. All right, young man Chu. Mullen's eyes were shining. He laughed. Learn medicine from me. Since your martial arts has been crippled, you can focus on medicine. You'll definitely become a miracle doctor. Chuli smiled. Can I use the 9 transformation meridian reforming technique? If you practice well, it's possible. Mulin nodded. But you can't use needles on yourself. You better give up. Chuli had a photographic memory. He could clearly remember the acupuncture techniques for all 109 acupuncture points. This solved the big problem. Chuli said, Elder Mulin, help me with the needles. Me? Mulin frowned. I don't dare to mess around. My life will be in danger if I make a slight mistake. Chuli smiled. Let me identify the acupuncture points. I can still identify my own acupuncture points. I'll just use a pen to mark them. Mulin hesitated. You can identify your own acupuncture points? A martial artist who had been practicing martial arts for a long time would have the ability to look inside. They would know their own acupuncture points. After practicing martial arts for a long time, they would be able to sense the acupuncture points on the meridians. However, it was difficult to identify the acupuncture points outside of the meridians. Mulin was an innate master. Of course, he knew this. Chuli said, Elder Mulin, you don't know that I've been practicing meditation for more than 10 years, right? I have a lot of experience in self-observation. You can look inside? Mulin asked. Chuli nodded slowly. Chapter 113. Even if he wanted to try, he could not do it right away. He had to find a quiet place. In the evening, when the sun was setting, they entered an inn in a small town. Chuli, Co. Shi, and Xiaoqi were arranged to stay in a small courtyard surrounded by protectors. There were 6 grandmasters in the courtyard. The west room was lit with 9 tallow candles. It was as bright as day. Chuli sat cross-legged on the bed, naked except for his shorts. His body was marked with 109 red and black spots. Mulin opened the 3 rows of silver boxes on the table. There were wooden needles, silver needles, and gold needles. Xiaoqi stood at the side. She looked at the red spots on his body calmly, as if Chuli was still wearing clothes. Third lady, if I run out of energy later, give me an energy pill. Mulin picked up a wooden needle and told Xiaoqi. Xiaoqi nodded. Okay, then let's start. Mulin nodded. The wooden needle was about to pierce Chuli, but stopped. Is the spirit blessing pill ready? Xiaoqi nodded. Mulin took a deep breath. His face was solemn. Chuli opened his eyes and sighed. Elder Mulin, hurry up and start. I won't die. You shut up. Mulin glared at him. Stop saying inauspicious things. Chuli closed his eyes again and began to use his inner vision. If the needle is not right, I will tell you. Okay. Mulin scoffed. If there's anything wrong, tell me immediately. Chuli said, I know. Hurry up. Mulin took a deep breath and slowly pierced the wooden needle. Chuli said, no problem. Mulin pierced another wooden needle. Chuli continued to judge if it was right or not. After a while, all 30 wooden needles were pierced. Every needle was precise and there were no mistakes. After the 36 needles, Mulin wiped the sweat off his forehead. At least he did not make a mistake. However, it was easy at the beginning and difficult at the end. The more he did it, the easier it was to make a mistake. Once he made a mistake, the risk would be higher. After the 36 silver needles were pierced, Mulin was sweating profusely. Xiaoqi stared at Chuli. She saw that Chuli spoke calmly and his expression was calm. It was as if the needles were not pierced on him. She was here to save him if there was any danger. Mulin looked at the golden needles in the box and gritted his teeth. Gold needles were softer, and precise control of them required inner strength. If he was not careful, he would be in danger. He needed to insert the needles perfectly, which was much more difficult than using wooden needles or silver needles. Xiaoqi said, Elder Gua, take a break. Mulin hesitated for a moment and nodded. Xiaoqi picked up the porcelain bottle on the table and passed it to him. Mulin swallowed a vitality pill and wiped his sweat. Kid, be careful. If anything goes wrong, tell me immediately. Chuli smiled and said, Elder Gua, just go ahead and apply the needles. I'm not that delicate. You little bastard. Mulin scoffed. He picked up a golden needle and shook it lightly. The needle turned into a straight line and slowly pierced into Chuli. He inserted the needles very quickly. In a short while, he had inserted 36 needles, and only the last one was left. Chuli observed his body. He did not feel anything when the 108 needles pierced into his body. It was very strange. In normal acupuncture techniques, there would be a feeling when one pierced an acupuncture point. If one pierced more, the feeling should be stronger. However, this set of acupuncture techniques was the opposite. At the beginning, there was a numbness, but as the needles pierced into his body, the feeling became weaker and weaker. In the end, it was as if his whole body was anesthetized. Mulin was sweating profusely. He wiped the sweat off his forehead. His bloodshot eyes stared at Chu Li's acupuncture point. The golden needles trembled slightly, as if they were about to fly out. Guo Mulin was channeling his inner strength through the needles. This last needle required a unique heart technique. The golden needles slowly approached Chu Li's acupuncture point. Guo Mulin's face became more and more serious. Chu Li also stared at the golden needles. When they got close to his acupuncture point, a golden light flashed and the needles pierced into his acupuncture point. Buzz! A soft whistle came from Chu Li's throat. The 109 needles shook violently at the same time. It was neat, like the wind blowing through the wheat. Chu Li felt that all the pores on his body had opened up. They were frantically swallowing the spiritual energy from the void. The spiritual energy surged into his meridians and continuously strengthened them. Chu Li suddenly had an idea. He suddenly activated the sentient menace. His whole body flashed with a golden light. His naked body looked like it was covered with a layer of golden powder. It was also emitting a golden light. It was as if he had turned into a golden Buddha. Guo Mulin widened his eyes and looked at Shao Qi. Shao Qi shook her head and said, "There shouldn't be a problem." Guo Mulin pointed at Chu Li. This was too abnormal. "This is a martial art," Shao Qi said. Guo Mulin nodded. He did not expect the sentient menace. After all, it was the antique study of the Tempest Temple. No one else dared to cultivate it. As time passed, the golden light on Chu Li's body gradually changed. It became darker and darker. It became a purplish gold. In the purplish gold, there was a hint of golden light. It was solemn and holy. It made people want to kneel down. Unknowingly, half an hour had passed. The golden light on Chu Li's body converged and suddenly disappeared. Needles shot out from his body like a hedgehog. A cold light flashed on Shao Qi's waist. Ding, 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 ding. All the needles that were shot at her and Guo Mulin were deflected. Chu Li opened his eyes. A golden light flashed in his eyes. The smile on his face spread like water ripples. He could not help but laugh out loud. This time, it was a blessing in disguise. He had successfully cultivated the fourth stage of the sentient menace. Guo Mulin quickly said, "Young man, how is it?" Chu Li smiled and said, "Elder Guo, thank you." Guo Mulin said, "Is it done?" "Yes." Chu Li nodded. Guo Mulin's eyes lit up. He laughed out loud. "Good, good." Chu Li put on his green robe and smiled. The 9 transformation meridian reforming technique is really amazing. I was lucky. Guo Mulin was so happy that he could not close his mouth. He shook his head and sighed. What a pity, what a pity. Chu Li's inner vision was very powerful. He could clearly see his own acupuncture points. Changing another one would not work. So the 9 transformation meridian reforming technique could only be performed on him. Other people could not do it. He could not perform it with his own ability. It was a pity. Shao Qi said, "Your martial art has improved, right? I've mastered the 4th stage." Chu Li smiled. Shao Qi raised her eyebrows slightly and looked at him in surprise. The 4th stage of the sentient menace was an extremely high level. It was almost invulnerable. Even if it was a grandmaster's inner energy, it could block half of it. Guo Mulin's smile disappeared. His face darkened and he scoffed. Martial art again." Chu Li said, "God has not given up on me. Elder Guo, I have to thank you for this. There is no good ending for martial arts." Guo Mulin glared at him. He did not even keep the needles. He turned around and opened the door to leave. Shao Qi shook her head and laughed. This elder Guo had a knot in his heart. She could not help it. She looked at Chu Li. "Are your injuries healed?" Chu Li got up from the bed and rotated his arm. He smiled and said, "I've fully recovered." "That's good." Shao Qi said, "You stay in your original state for now." Chu Li smiled. "I'll be a surprise, soldier." Yes, just in case. I hope I don't have to. Yes. For the next few days, Chu Li kept lying down. He pretended to be seriously injured and observed the situation around him. He found that there was no one to harass him. The Rin public house seemed to have disappeared. They were no longer interested in this group of people. Chapter 114. In the afternoon, Chu Li suddenly knocked on the carriage. Xiaoqi rode beside his carriage and asked softly, "What is it?" "My lady, I'm a little worried." "Let's catch someone from the Rin public house and ask," Chu Li said. "Are you worried that Lu Yurong will go against Chongming Town?" "It's possible." "Don't worry, Big Brother won't fall for it. Let's ask." "All right." Xiaoqi called someone over and gave a few orders. Soon, they caught a spy half a mile behind them. The carriage stopped, and everyone sat in the woods to rest. Chu Li was helped down from the carriage and sat on a bluestone. A middle-aged man stood in front of him. His appearance was ordinary, and he did not look out of place in the crowd. He stood there obediently, without moving an inch. Xiaoqi stood beside Chu Li and looked at the middle-aged man. "You're from the Rin public house. You don't have to deny it. Tell us honestly, and we'll let you go." She interrogated him personally because she was the third lady of the public house. She would keep her word, and the other party would believe her if she said she would let him go. Moreover, she wanted to see through his thoughts and get the truth. "Yes," the middle-aged man said softly. "I'm indeed a protector of the Rin public house." "What's your name?" Xiaoqi asked gently. "I'm Hu Run." The middle-aged man answered immediately. Xiaoqi asked, "Is that your real name?" "Yes," the middle-aged man quickly said. "I dare not lie to you. My name is Hu Run." Xiaoqi looked at him calmly and signaled to a protector beside her. The young protector stepped forward and hit the middle-aged man's back, causing him to fall. He then stepped on his right palm and said coldly, "You're tired of living. How dare you lie to the third lady?" The middle-aged man laid on the ground. His face was covered with dust and withered grass. He struggled to raise his head and said loudly, "I dare not. My name is really Hu Run." Xiaoqi shook her head and did not say anything. The young protector exerted force on his foot. Crack! His right palm was broken. "Ah!" The middle-aged protector screamed loudly, startling the birds in the woods. Chu Li covered his mouth and coughed softly, looking more and more like someone who had yet to recover from serious injury. He shook his head and sighed. "Why bother? It's just some normal questions. There's no need to play tricks. Even if Lu Yurong knows that you've confessed, she won't make things difficult for you." "I'm telling the truth." The middle-aged guard showed a pleading expression and said regretfully, "I'm not lying." Xiaoqi uttered, "His left palm is crippled too." "Yes, third miss." The young guard responded in a deep voice. Ignoring the middle-aged man's struggles and screams, he took the opportunity to break his left palm. Xiaoqi said, "There's a limit to my patience. Next time, I'll directly cripple your martial arts." "Where did Lu Yurong go?" "I don't know." The middle-aged man's face was deathly pale. His palms had already been crushed, and he could not exert any strength. He sighed in a hoarse voice, "I'm just a small fry." Startled man. "What about the grandmasters?" Xiaoqi asked. "They've retreated back to the public house." The middle-aged man answered without hesitation. He could see Xiaoqi's determination. The next time she crippled his martial arts, everything would be gone, and he would rather die. Xiaoqi looked at him and shook her head. "Looks like you don't want your martial arts anymore." The middle-aged man hurriedly shouted, "I swear to God, if I lie, I'll die a horrible death." Xiaoqi said, "Cripple him." "Yes, third miss." The young guard did not hesitate to step on the middle-aged man's dantian. I'll speak. The middle-aged man hurriedly shouted. Xiaoqi did not speak. The young guard exerted force with the tip of his foot and fiercely pushed. The middle-aged man screamed in despair and stared at Xiaoqi. His eyes were filled with hatred as if he wanted to pierce through her. Xiaoqi calmly waved her hand. "Throw him to the side of the road." The young guard picked up the middle-aged man and threw him to the side of the road like a dead dog. He then returned without saying a word. Everyone was intimidated by Xiaoqi, and their movements became gentler. Chu Li said, Looks like Lu Yurong still hasn't given up. Yes. Co. Chi gently nodded. She still hasn't given up even at this point. Where's her cleverness? Both of them could see through people's hearts. The middle-aged man lied, but he was still so loyal under such circumstances. It was best to cripple him. Since he was no longer a threat, he should be spared. Chuli smiled. You've mobilized so many grandmasters, but you can't do anything about it. She's still human. Co. Chi's watery eyes fell on his face. Can you find them? She knew that Chu Li was sensitive and could seek fortune and avoid calamity. He could faintly sense danger. Through this sense of danger, he should be able to find Lu Yurong and the others. Chu Li pondered. Are we going to turn the tables? If we take the initiative to attack once, Lu Yurong will probably give up. That's true. All right, I'll try. Co. Chi said, I'll go with you. Chu Li looked at her and did not object. Co. Shi and the others continued their journey, with the protectors following closely. Chu Li and Co. Chi quietly left the convoy and used their light body technique to shuttle through the forest. After a quarter of an hour, Chu Li stopped in front of a valley and pointed at the lush valley. Co. Chi was surprised. They're inside. Chu Li nodded. Most likely, that place is the most dangerous. He had already seen the situation in the valley in his mind. The 6 grandmasters were all there, but Lu Yurong was not there. Although he had never seen Lu Yurong before, if she was there, he would definitely recognize her. The 6 grandmasters were resting in the forest in the valley. They were lazy and could not lift their spirits. My lady, are we really going to fight? Yes. All right then, you go first. I'll lure them over. Co. Chi glared at him. It was obvious that she was too lazy to refute him. Chu Li smiled. My light body technique is good. They won't be able to catch up. Go and call Elder Zhao and the others over. Once they get close, they will definitely be alerted. It'll be hard to ambush them. Chu Li said. Grandmasters had an intuition towards danger. If they could sense the danger beforehand, it would be hard to ambush them. If the opponent wanted to avoid the battle, it would be hard to catch them unless they were forced into a corner like Co. Shi. Chu Li had now figured out Lu Yurong's plan. Her goal was not to kill Co. Shi, but to kill Zhao, Qingshan, and the others. To weaken the E-Public House's strength, eliminating a grandmaster was the most effective way. It seemed like she wanted to deal with Co. Shi and numb the people of the E-Public House. But it was like boiling a frog in warm water. Unknowingly, the strength of the E-Public House weakened, and in the end, they became the meat of the Rin Public House. Co. Chi frowned. She was very unwilling. Chu Li said, My lady, let me do it. Co. Chi gently shook her head. Don't mess around. Chu Li smiled. If I can't hit them, I'll escape. No problem. He did not wait for Co. Chi to reply. He disappeared on the spot, and in another flash, he appeared in the forest in the valley. Swoosh! With a light whistle, a cold light shot toward Shi Wu, the leader of the 6 grandmasters of the Rin Public House. Shi Wu was short and thin. He did not look like a top-notch master. He looked more like an old farmer. His heart was alarmed. His body flashed, and he barely avoided it. However, the speed of the flying blade was too fast. It brushed past his shoulder and drew a long wound. Blood flowed out. Who? Shi Wu covered his shoulder. His face was pale. From the moment he felt the warning to when he dodged, the time was too short for him to react. Chu Li disappeared in a flash and appeared beside Co. Chi. He whispered, Let's go. Co. Chi and Chu Li used their light body technique and flew away. 6 figures flew out of the valley. Shi Wu and the others madly chased after them. They followed their instincts and chased after them. Chu Li saw that things were not going well. He whispered, My lady, I'm sorry. He reached out and grabbed Co. Chi's slender waist. They disappeared in a flash. Co. Chi was about to struggle. The light and shadow in front of her distorted. Her whole body was suppressed by an invisible force, and she could not move. After a moment, her eyes brightened. She was already on a main road, and she did not know how far they had flown. She turned her head and coldly stared at Chu Li. Chu Li let go of her hand. The warmth and softness of his palm made him very reluctant. However, On the surface, he smiled as if nothing had happened. He said, "Grandmasters are really scary. They can actually catch up, but they don't dare to mess around. I hurt one of them." "You hurt him?" Seo Chi looked at him. Chu Li smiled and said, "The fourth level allows me to use the infinite azure sea to my heart's content." Seo Chi said, "Since you've reached the fourth level, you are still not a match for a grandmaster." She was also enlightened. The fourth level of the sentient menace was the meridian refinement, which made the meridians extremely tough. It was like adding wings to a tiger for the infinite azure sea. With another level of the infinite azure sea, the power would be incomparable, and it would greatly increase his strength. Of course, Chu Li smiled, but this time, they will not dare to be unscrupulous. They will be more obedient. Chapter 115. The two caught up with the crowd. Chu Li stopped pretending to be a patient and became the coachman. Xiao Qi rode beside him on her horse. Chu Li swung his whip and asked, "My lady, have you seen a spirit tiger before?" "A spirit tiger," Xiao Qi muttered. "You want to see a spirit tiger?" She guessed Chu Li's intention right away. He cultivated the art of white tiger portrait and wanted to see the true form of a spirit tiger. It was beneficial for his cultivation. He had seen a few of the master's portraits and must have learned something from them. Chu Li smiled. "It would be great if I could see a spirit tiger. You know how powerful a spirit tiger is." Xiao Qi said, "With your current cultivation level, you'll die if you meet a spirit tiger. My lady, have you seen a spirit tiger before? If you have, you can't see me now. Is a spirit tiger really that powerful? You can learn a thing or two from the art of white tiger." Xiao Qi calmly said, "They're God's favored children. They're born with psychic abilities, strong bodies, and inherited cultivation methods. If it weren't for the fact that they stayed in 100,000 hills and despised the outside world, I'm afraid they would have been extinct long ago." The spirit tiger was terrifying beyond imagination. She knew from the imperial family's secrets that once a spirit tiger came out of the mountains, it would kill an entire city of people. No matter how powerful a human was, they were no different from ants in front of a spirit tiger. Only enlightened masters could escape. The spiritual energy in the 100,000 hills was dense. The cities and villages outside were like stinking ditches compared to the 100,000 hills. The spirit tiger could not stand it and did not want to stay for even a moment longer. This gave humans a chance to survive. Chu Li sighed. 100,000 hills. The more he read, the more he understood the world. He realized that humans were not the king of all things in this world. The spirit beasts in the 100,000 hills were the real masters and viewed humans as ants. No matter how powerful one's martial arts was, it was nothing in front of a spirit beast. Treasured swords could not pierce through a spirit beast's fur, and martial arts were like tickles to a spirit beast. He also knew that powerful martial arts were often learned from spirit beasts. For example, the sun cultivating white tiger portrait, the current world's palm techniques, and fist techniques all originated from spirit beasts. They were merely imitations of spirit beasts. Compared to the real spirit beasts, it was somewhat laughable. The 100,000 mountain range was a paradise for spirit beasts and a forbidden area for humans. Xiao Qi said, "Even a master in the enlightened master's boundary will most likely die if he approaches 100,000 hills. How are those tiger drawings drawn? It might have been passed down from the heavenly god realm, or it might have been passed down from generation to generation." Xiao Qi furrowed her brows and shook her head. No matter how similar the tiger in the painting is, it's still nothing compared to a real spirit tiger. Unfortunately, almost no one has ever seen a spirit tiger and survived. Chu Li muttered, "Has no one ever raised a tiger?" Xiao Qi glared at him as if blaming him for asking such a stupid question. Whoever dares to raise a tiger is courting death. Putting aside the question of how one could obtain a cub of a spirit tiger, even if one were to obtain one by chance, one would not be able to raise it. The spirit tigers in the world could sense one another, and they would soon come to one's doorstep, annihilate one's entire family, and take away the cub. Chu Li sighed. "I really want to see the spirit tiger." "You'll only have a glimmer of hope when you've reached the enlightened mastery's boundary." Xiao Qi shook her head. Below the enlightened mastery's boundary, 100,000 hills is a forbidden place. Chuli nodded helplessly. But this time, Grand Secretary Kong has a few tiger drawings hidden away. You can borrow them from second eldest sister, Xiaoqi said. Chuli's eyes lit up. He realized that the art of white tiger was extremely mysterious. It was completely different from the usual torso tuning techniques. He even felt that the art of white tiger might not be any weaker than the sentient menace, and might even be better. The sentient menace borrowed energy from the body, but the art of white tiger absorbed the invisible energy from the void. However, if he wanted to improve the art of white tiger, the force of the white tiger was the most important. By looking at a few tiger drawings, his cultivation progressed faster. If he could see a real spirit tiger, it would be even more powerful. Unfortunately, it was rare to see a white tiger, so he could only look at the tiger drawings. He had seen a tiger in his past life. Although it was far from the spirit tiger of this world, it was still somewhat similar, unlike the people today who only heard of legends and had never seen a real tiger. They could only rely on their imagination. This allowed him to cultivate the art of white tiger very quickly, far surpassing the people. If he wanted to completely cultivate the art of white tiger, he might have to see a real spirit tiger. "My lady, I want to go out for a while," Chuli said. Xiaoqi looked at him. Chuli said, "I'll be back soon." Xiaoqi frowned. It seemed that he did not want to tell her, but she did not ask. "Don't take too long. If something really happens, I'll send a signal." Chuli patted the arrow on his chest and smiled. "If there's danger, I can escape. Go." Xiaoqi waved her hand. Chuli closed fist, saluted, and disappeared from the carriage. Guomulin fluttered over. "Third lady, where's young Chuli? He has some private matters to attend to. This young man, he really makes people worry." Guomulin shook his head. Xiaoqi glanced at him. She did not expect that Chuli would be able to enter Guomulin's eyes. Guomulin's medical skills were very high, but his temper was also very bad. Other than second elder sister, he did not like anyone else. He would always mock and ridicule others, but Chuli was the exception. If it wasn't for him this time, second lady and I would be finished. Guomulin sighed. This young man is really ruthless to himself. He's quite loyal, Xiaoqi said. Guomulin said, "Congratulations, third lady. I can see that second lady is also very tempted and wants to snatch it." Xiaoqi pursed her lips and chuckled. Guomulin shook his head. This kind of smart and loyal guy is very rare. He should be put in an important position. Xiaoqi said, "I see that he likes medical skills. Please give him some pointers, Elder Gua. I want to pass on my medical skills to him." Guomulin said, "Nowadays, people are desperately practicing martial arts. They don't want to learn medicine. If this continues, no one will be able to treat their injuries." Xiaoqi nodded. This was indeed a big problem. People valued martial arts more than literature. Doctors were often people who could not practice martial arts and were forced to choose it. They did not really like it. As a result, there was a lack of medical talents. They were becoming more and more scarce. The exquisite medical skills of the predecessors were slowly being lost. In the depths of a dense forest, Chuli suddenly appeared behind Fa Yuan. He swung his hand and shot out a cold light. Fa Yuan's gray robe fluttered. He moved horizontally a foot and pointed a finger behind him. "Chi! Chi!" Two sounds of air being pierced were heard almost at the same time. Chuli moved sideways to avoid the finger energy. The invisible finger energy was clearly visible to his eyes. Fa Yuan also avoided the cold light. He turned around and threw another punch. Woo! The fist energy hit like a rock. Chuli extended his palm and pressed. Bang! He was pushed back 3 steps. He spun his feet and dissipated the fist energy. His palm felt as if it was cut by a knife. Traces of energy still permeated his arm. Such a pure, inner energy. Chuli sighed. However, he was no longer afraid of Fa Yuan's inner energy. He used the imminent skyline purification technique. The combination of the infinite azure sea and the imminent skyline technique produced a trace of pure inner energy to fight against Fa Yuan's inner energy. If it was in the past, His meridians would not be able to withstand the confrontation of two pure inner energies. Now he was fearless. However, this technique was extremely complicated. He needed to circulate the complicated heart technique twice, especially the imminent skyline purification technique. It was not used to fight against an enemy. Chapter 116. Amipa. Fa Yuan stood 10 steps away from him. His gray robe fluttered in the wind, and his handsome face was solemn. Chuli grinned. Monk Fa Yuan, you still haven't given up yet. Fa Yuan pressed his palms together. Congratulations. Almsgiver Chu's martial arts has improved greatly. Chuli waved his hand. Hypocrite, do you really like my martial arts? The Tempest Temple can't wait for my martial arts to be crippled and kill me. Almsgiver Chu, you're wrong. Fa Yuan shook his head and said, I'm following the abbot's orders to surrender to you. If you convert to our temple, everyone in our temple will be happy. Chuli waved his hand. Monk, forget it. We're not on the same path. I haven't enjoyed enough glory and wealth. I haven't seen enough of the mortal world. When he first left the temple and entered the public house, he wanted to experience the mortal world and enjoy the riches of this world. Dharma was profound. No matter how smart a person was, they would not be able to understand the essence of Dharma without experiencing the mortal world and seeing through it. It was like telling a person who had never eaten meat that they would get tired of eating too much meat. If they did not eat enough meat, no matter how good their understanding was, they would not get tired of it. Amipa. Fa Yuan sighed. What a pity, what a pity. Chuli smiled. Monk, you want to kill me. Subduing demons is my duty. Fa Yuan shook his head. Almsgiver Chu, why do you have to do this? Chuli said, Monk, I won't hold back then. Fa Yuan pointed with his finger soundlessly. Chuli sidestepped and dodged it. Monk, you're so cunning. What kind of finger energy is that? Formless finger. Fa Yuan said gently. Almsgiver Chu, please. Chuli suddenly disappeared from the spot. Fa Yuan's body moved as well. Like a wisp of smoke, he moved in front of him and behind him at the same time, preventing Chuli from flashing to his back. At the same time, he shot out rays of finger energy that turned into a large net to protect his body, preventing Chuli from approaching him silently. Chuli appeared 100 feet away and laughed. Monk, why are you so afraid of death? A monk has not seen through life and death. Your boundary is not high enough. Fa Yuan's expression did not change. He clasped his palms together and chanted the name of Buddha, sighing, Almsgiver Chu has great light body technique. Chuli said, Fa Yuan, you can't just follow me like this. You can't break my light body technique, and you can't threaten me with other people's lives. Why don't we stop? Fa Yuan said faintly, I will always follow Almsgiver Chu and look for flaws. How long are you going to follow me? If 1 month is not enough, then 1 year. If 1 year is not enough, then 10 years. Fa Yuan said, Almsgiver Chu is my inner demon. I must get rid of him. Chuli could not help but laugh. I become your inner demon. Interesting. I can only destroy you now. He disappeared in a flash. Fa Yuan's silhouette followed suit. He was as ethereal as smoke. Chuli did not appear at all. Fa Yuan did not dare to stop for even a moment. After 15 minutes, there was still no movement. His sword-like eyebrows twitched slightly, and he suddenly stopped. He focused his attention and gathered the power in his finger. He was ready to strike at any time, and was also ready to dodge his opponent's sneak attack. A cool breeze gently swept past the treetops, blowing on his face and making him feel warm. The forest was empty, and there was no longer any movement. He did not dare to relax, and was very careful. Chuli suddenly flashed and appeared in front of Fa Yuan. Fa Yuan had been paying attention to what was behind him and did not expect Chuli to appear in front of him. Chi! A cold light shot towards Fa Yuan's throat. Fa Yuan desperately moved to the side. Relying on the warning signs and intuition at the last moment, he barely avoided the attack. The left side of his neck was slashed by the blade. If it was not for the sentient menace, he would have been injured. Chu Li shook his head. With the protection of the sentient menace, it would not be easy to kill Fa Yuan. Monk again. Chu Li chuckled and disappeared once again. Fa Yuan suddenly sat cross-legged and closed his eyes. He put his palms together and chanted. He activated the sentient menace to the extreme, and his whole body was enveloped in golden light. Chu Li stood 20 meters away and sized him up. Fa Yuan was already at the 4th level of the sentient menace. It was clear that he was gifted and was even better than Chu Li. Such a young monk from the Tempest Temple was able to reach the Grandmaster's boundary. Who knew how many Grandmasters were hidden in the Tempest Temple? Time passed slowly. Fa Yuan took out a porcelain bottle and swallowed a pill. He then continued to chant. The sentient menace consumed a lot of inner energy. With each advancement, the consumption of inner energy doubled. Chu Li estimated that no matter how deep Fa Yuan's inner energy was, his inner energy could not be used for too long. After all, he could not use the surrounding spiritual energy like the life and death scripture. Chu Li disappeared from the spot and returned to the carriage. Xiao Qi was talking next to Xiao Shi's carriage. She felt his appearance and glanced at him. Her eyes were as clear as spring water. Chu Li smiled and nodded. He swung the horsewhip lightly. Along the way, Chu Li appeared in front of Fa Yuan from time to ambush him. Although Fa Yuan was struggling, he was not injured. The sentient menace made him invincible. He could not do anything to Chu Li, and Chu Li could not do anything to him. Jinghai Town, Kong resident Chu Li changed into a scholar's green robe and took a folding fan. It immediately covered up his heroic spirit and made him look like a scholar. He followed Xiao Shi and Xiao Qi side by side with Guamyulin and entered the lively Kong residence. Grand Secretary Kong was a high-ranking official of the imperial court. Although he had retired, he had students all over the world. Many of them were in high positions. Most of the people who came to congratulate him were officials of the imperial court. It was rare to see people from the martial arts world. Everyone knew that Grand Secretary Kong hated people from the martial arts world. He felt that they violated the law with their martial arts and ignored the imperial court's laws. They were unscrupulous and should be punished severely. It would be best if they were all eliminated. Then the world would be at peace. Since he came to power, he suppressed many sects in the martial arts world. He even destroyed 2 sections. The disciples of these 2 sects were unfilial and committed crimes. However, the 2 sects blindly covered up for them. He eradicated the 2 sects with a thunderous method. It was a shocking case. Before Chu Li came, he already knew about Grand Secretary Kong. He was considered a good person in the imperial court. He was gentle and gentle. When he faced people from the martial arts world, he immediately changed his attitude. However, his essays and poems were well known, and he was greatly supported by the scholars. The leader of the literary world, the public enemy of the martial arts world. The doorman led the 4 into the front courtyard of the Grand Secretary residence. Xiao Shi and Xiao Qi were led to the main hall, while Chu Li and Guamyulin were led to the side hall. Both of them did not have the qualifications to see Grand Secretary Kong. The side hall was also very lively. There were many advisors and protectors with sharp eyes. The 2 of them did not attract any attention when they came in. Chu Li and Guamyulin sat in the armchair. The 2 of them discussed medical skills along the way. Chu Li asked for advice on the problems he encountered in the medical books. Guamyulin patiently explained from the simple to the profound. Chu Li learned a lot. He was considered to have completely entered the door of medical skills. He had a photographic memory. He memorized classic ancient prescriptions and medicinal herbs. He was very familiar with them. This made Guamyulin envious. He also placed great hope in Chu Li. He felt that Chu Li was a genius doctor. With a little training, he could run amok in the apricot forest. They talked for a while and were let out again. They passed through a few moon gates and arrived at a quiet courtyard. There was a green bamboo forest in the courtyard. Xiao Qi and Xiao Shi were already sitting in the gazebo in the courtyard admiring the bamboos. There was a delicate maid beside them. Thanks to second eldest sister, we will be staying here for the next 2 days. Xiao Qi said, Elder Gua and Chu Li will also be staying here. Chu Li smiled. This Grand Secretary Kong hates people from the martial arts world so much. How can he still hire a grandmaster to protect him? Along the way, he used the omniscient mirror to observe the Kong residents. He found 2 grandmasters. Chapter 117. They were sent by the imperial family. Xiao Qi shook her head. Without a grandmaster, Scholar Kong would have been killed. Mulan scoffed. He's too hateful. Scholar Kong has a noble character and is supported by the scholars. If he's assassinated, it'll be a disaster. Xiao Shi said softly. That's true. Mulan nodded. If he's killed, the scholars will hate the martial arts world even more. They'll push the imperial court to suppress the martial arts world. The world might be in chaos. Chuli coughed. It won't be that bad, right? Do you think the world is peaceful now? Mulan rolled his eyes at him. There's an undercurrent. If there's chaos, the High Duke's public house will be the first to bear the brunt. Chuli looked at Xiao Qi. They should be prepared. Xiao Qi said, there's nothing we can do if there's chaos. The most frightening thing is when the enemies invade. These people from the martial arts world will create chaos. Chuli shook his head. The martial arts world is too peaceful. The martial arts world is not peaceful. The public security is in chaos. The people's hearts are boiling. Xiao Qi shook her head. I understand what you mean, but I don't dare to do it. She understood what Chuli meant. He wanted to incite chaos in the martial arts world. He wanted them to kill each other and weaken their strength. Even if they were to create chaos in the future, it would be difficult for them to do anything. Unfortunately, it was like playing with fire. The imperial court dared not do anything rash. The imperial court doesn't want to unify the martial arts world? Chuli asked. They want to, but they can't. Xiao Qi said, unless they're from the 4 major sects, it'll be hard to convince the public. The 4 major sects have a high status. The imperial court can't touch them. Chuli sighed. It's an awkward situation. Yes, Xiao Qi said. Xiao Shi smiled. Chuli, you've learned medicine from Elder Gua. How's your medical skills? Chuli smiled. I've only learned a little. You're not humble at all. Mulan said impatiently. I've only learned a little. You haven't even learned a little. Chuli smiled. It's all thanks to Elder Gua's training. Then help me take a look. Xiao Shi extended her snow-white wrist. Her skin was as white as snow. It was less lustrous than Xiao Qi's. Coupled with her eyebrows that were far away, her delicate face made people feel pity and care. Chuli glanced at Xiao Qi. Xiao Qi said, let's watch then. Chuli placed his right hand on Xiao Shi's wrist. A delicate and cool sensation traveled from his fingertips to his body. He suppressed his palpitating heart and focused his senses on her. After a while, he asked her to switch to her other wrist and carefully examined it. He slowly furrowed his brows and activated the omniscient mirror. He slowly looked at her body inch by inch, but he could not find any problems. Have you found anything? Mulan scoffed. Chuli did not say anything and continued to stare at Xiao Shi. Xiao Shi felt uncomfortable being stared at by him. It was as if his gaze could penetrate her clothes. Standing naked in front of him, her skin felt a little numb. Chuli frowned. Something's not right. He had seen the body of a congenitally deficient person, and it was different from Xiao Shi's. Xiao Shi's condition was a little strange. Her meridians were thin and weak, and her qi of vitality was weak. She was like a flickering candle that could be blown out by a gust of wind. This was not because her body was weak, but because she did not have enough vitality. It was a sign that her life was coming to an end. It's a congenital deficiency. Can't you tell? Mulan said. Chuli shook his head. That doesn't seem right. What's wrong? Mulan asked with interest. What's different? Chuli turned his head to Xiao Qi and said, My lady, can you find a young woman who does not know martial arts? It would be best if she is 2 years younger than the second lady. No martial arts. Xiao Qi nodded. No problem. Mulan said, What did you see? I suspect that the lady is not congenitally weak, but it's a special technique. Chuli frowned. I've read about a secret technique in a miscellaneous book. It kills without leaving a trace. Although he had read medical books before, he did not have anyone to guide him. He only knew the theory without much thought. After Mulan's guidance, He had mastered it thoroughly. When he looked at the human body again, it was completely different from before. He had a deeper understanding of the subtleties and wonders of the human body. Co. Shi's body seemed to be congenitally deficient. Her pulse was so, and her external symptoms were also consistent. However, there were some circumstances that did not match the signs of a congenital deficiency. No matter how good Mulin was, no matter how accurate he was at reading the pulse, he could not see through the human body like Chu Li. It was like the difference between an ultrasound and an MRI. What technique? Co. Chi turned to ask Chu Li after she finished instructing the maid. Chu Li said, "Vitality, sealing finger. My initial suspicion is this, but I still have to verify it." Co. Chi thought for a while and shook her head. She had never heard of this. Mulin frowned and thought hard. He had never heard of it either. Co. Shi muttered, "Vitality sealing finger. I think I've seen it before. It drains one's innate vitality and reduces one's lifespan, right?" Chu Li nodded. "It can't be?" Mulin frowned. Looking at Co. Shi's symptoms, it's completely congenitally deficient. Chu Li said, "After the vitality sealing finger is cast, the outward appearance is congenitally deficient because it continuously drains one's innate vitality. But this is just my guess. I still need to take a closer look." While they were talking, the maid from before brought another maid in. Chu Li glanced at the delicate and pretty maid. She was petite and thin, and her face was rosy. Although she did not look like she knew martial arts, she was very healthy. She came in front of the four of them, lowered her head, and did not move. Chu Li did not say anything. He only stared at her. After a while, he looked at Co. Shi again. His eyes moved back and forth between the two of them. After a quarter of an hour, Chu Li waved his hand. Co. Chi ordered the maid to leave. The maid from before followed and left the courtyard. Co. Chi said, "Is it the vitality sealing finger?" "Most likely." Chu Li sighed. "I didn't expect this technique to not be lost. Is there a way?" Co. Chi asked. Co. Shi's eyes were clear like water. She looked at him quietly. It was obvious that her heart was not moved. Mulin was dubious about it. After all, Chu Li had only learned medicine for a few days. He was half a bottle of water. Could he really tell if it was congenitally deficient or with the vitality sealing finger? Co. Shi was not an ordinary person. If he really made a mistake and some accident happened, 100 deaths would not be enough to atone for it. Chu Li said, "Coincidentally, I know the method to remove it. It's not complicated, but it's a little dangerous." "Ow?" Co. Chi asked. Chu Li looked at Co. Shi. "You need to use a strong inner energy to hit Bai Wei. It's best if it's a grandmaster." Co. Chi frowned. "It's either life or death, right? Using a strong inner energy to hit Bai Wei, even a grandmaster would die. Not to mention a weak woman like second elder sister." Chu Li nodded helplessly. "Yes. How dare you? How dare you?" Mulin widened his eyes and said angrily, "Nonsense." Co. Shi frowned and pondered. Chu Li saved her life before. She did not doubt his loyalty. However, she was not confident in his medical skills. Co. Chi stared at him. "Chu Li, are you sure?" Chu Li said, "Most likely. Indeed, it's nonsense." Co. Chi said lightly, "Forget it. Pretend that nothing happened." Chapter 118. The courtyard fell into silence. Xiao Qi and Xiao Shi were deep in thought. Mulin said, "Young Chu, where did you see this vitality sealing finger?" Chu Li said, "The arcane technique examination. I'll go back and study it." Mulin said, "Is there really vitality sealing finger, or are you just talking nonsense?" Xiao Qi said, "Elder Mulin, I don't have the guts, but there's no need to rush this matter. Take it slow." Chu Li gave Xiao Qi a look. Xiao Qi nodded to show that she understood. After dinner, Chu Li went to Xiao Qi's house. There were 4 rooms in the courtyard. There were 2 bedrooms in the main hall and the left and right wing. Xiao Qi lived in the left bedroom. When Chu Li entered, Xiao Qi was reading under the lamp. The tallow candle was as bright as day. Her face exuded a warm luster like a fine jade. Xiao Qi put down the book and pointed at the garden stool. Chu Li closed fists, saluted, and sat 2 steps away. Shao Qi said, "What do you want to say?" Chu Li sighed. "My lady, in my opinion, second lady does not have much time left." "You can tell." Shao Qi frowned. Chu Li nodded. "It's not martial arts or medical skills. It's a Buddhist technique that I'm cultivating." "How much longer does second eldest sister have?" Shao Qi asked. Chu Li said, "Less than half a year." "Half a year?" Shao Qi frowned and asked, "Is she really hit by vitality sealing finger?" "Yes." "Can you determine that?" "Yes." "Then why are you hesitating?" "My words may not be useful. Moreover, second lady has a distinguished identity. It's better to let someone else take a look and find a grandmaster. Are you not confident in yourself?" "My words carry no weight. Whether it's second lady or master Shao Taiying, they won't let me do it. If it's you, can you undo it?" "Yes," Chu Li said slowly. He was full of confidence because he could clearly see the situation in her body. His inner energy was strong enough. One palm was enough to undo vitality sealing finger. However, this matter was very complicated. His position was not high enough. If he was a grandmaster, the public house would definitely value him and give him their trust. He was only an innate master. Although he became a chief, he still could not be trusted. Shao Qi put down the book and opened the window. The night breeze slowly entered the house and the tallow candle flickered. Shao Qi looked at the crescent moon in the sky. Her heart was as calm as still water as she thought about the stakes of this matter. She understood Chu Li's concerns. Big Brother's side was an important obstacle. Big Brother would never trust Chu Li and would not let him take charge of this matter. Moreover, he might not believe in Chu Li's judgment and would definitely deny the vitality sealing finger. "Half a year," Shao Qi muttered. Chu Li said, "My lady, it might not be half a year. Let's take it slowly. We really can't rush this." Shao Qi looked at him deeply. "I don't need to explain the stakes of this matter." The reason why she trusted Chu Li was that this matter would not benefit Chu Li in the slightest. There would only be great risks. He was already second eldest sister savior. Saving second eldest sister would just be icing on the cake, and the benefits would be limited. Once he failed, his life would be in danger. According to Big Brother's temper, he would definitely vent his anger on Chu Li, and it would be difficult for him to survive. However, she was fully aware of the difficulty of this matter. Big Brother was very concerned about second eldest sister and did not believe that Chu Li had such an ability. He would definitely not take the risk on second eldest sister. Chu Li sighed. "Maybe there's another way to solve the vitality sealing finger. I'll look into it." "All right, I'll get someone to investigate as well," Shao Qi said. Chu Li nodded. Shao Qi said, "Keep this matter a secret. Don't spread it out." Chu Li sighed. "Of course." Shao Qi waved her hand. "You go." Chu Li got up with some disappointment. He sat in the same room as her. He was surrounded by her quiet breath. There was an inexplicable sense of satisfaction and joy. Time passed quickly. He was about to leave. Suddenly, his heart felt empty and melancholy. He really wanted to stay here and not leave. He suppressed his melancholy, closed fist saluted, and left the room. When he came to the courtyard, he sat in the gazebo. He looked at the crescent moon in the night sky. His thoughts floated, and he felt an inexplicable emotion. He really wanted to drink a little to drown out the melancholy in his heart. Chu Li's ears suddenly moved, and he moved to the side. The omniscient mirror was activated. He saw more than 10 men in black lying under the flowering trees, hiding in the shadows in the corner. They were motionless, and they blended in with the surrounding darkness. He raised his eyebrows. These people in the martial arts world were really impatient. They did not want Grand Secretary Kong to finish his birthday. The omniscient mirror activated again and read the scenes in their minds. They were actually 2 factions. He shook his head. Grand Secretary Kong had annihilated the 2 factions. These people were the remnants of the 2 factions. They had endured for so many years, and now they wanted to take revenge. The whole world would know about it, and all the officials of the imperial court would be shocked. He thought for a while, but he did not do anything. The Kong residence was not the public house. As a guest, there was no need to get involved. It would be easy to get into trouble. Moreover, Grand Secretary Kong had a Grandmaster to protect him, so there was no danger. He retracted the omniscient mirror and only stared at these people's movements. The night was getting darker. Unknowingly, it was late at night. The entire Kong residence was asleep. Chu Li knew that Shao Qi and Co Shi were asleep. Guomulin tossed and turned for a long time before he fell asleep. The courtyard was completely quiet. Chu Li got up and went out. He stood in the courtyard with his hands behind his back and looked at the bright moon without moving. The bright moon was like a hook. After a long time, the omniscient mirror saw those men in black moving. There were 3 of them in one group, and there were a total of 7 groups. They went in different directions. Some went to the main hall of the Kong residence. Some went to the kitchen, some went to the backyard, and some went to the guest house. 3 men in black came to their courtyard. Chu Li did not want them to disturb Shao Qi's sleep. When they approached the wall of the courtyard and wanted to jump up, he suddenly appeared behind them. The heart destruction palm directly broke their heart meridian, and they died silently. Only one man flew into the air and flew over the wall into the courtyard. Chu Li finished off the 2 men and appeared behind him again. He killed him with 1 palm strike, and then he caught his corpse and silently floated outside the wall. He put the 3 men together and then flashed back to the pavilion in the courtyard. The Kong residence was in chaos. Soon, the firewood room in the kitchen was on fire. Someone woke up and shouted for help. Many people rushed out to put out the fire. The men in black took advantage of the chaos and took the opportunity to take out knives to kill. Chu Li frowned. The protectors of the Kong residence were too useless. They did not notice the situation in time. He flashed twice, killed 3 men in black, and then disappeared. The rest of the people who went to the backyard to assassinate, Chu Li did not interfere. He only observed in his mind. When these 4 groups of 12 men in black approached the backyard, they each took a pill. Soon, their eyes were bloodshot, and their bodies were surrounded by a violent aura. As soon as they rushed into the backyard, a Grandmaster suddenly appeared. 6 black-shirt men surrounded the Grandmaster without a care for their own safety. They did not care about the Grandmaster's attacks, and only attacked with all their might. It was obvious that they were death warriors. The other 6 men rushed into the bedroom and pounced on a thin elder. It was Chu Li's first time seeing Grand Secretary Kong. He was thin and short, with a snow-white beard and a pair of burning eyes. Although he did not know martial arts, he was focused and had a threatening aura. He faced the 6 men in black, and his expression did not change. Instead, he snorted angrily, "How dare you?" A gray-robed elder stood beside him. His left and right palms pressed towards the 6 men, and the surging palm energy made it difficult for them to move forward. The eyes of the men in black were completely red. They were like monsters. 2 men in black pounced towards the gray-robed elder. Their chests were wide open, and they took the palm energy head-on. They spat out blood and still pounced forward. The other 4 men in black pounced towards Grand Secretary Kong. The Grandmaster saw that things were not going well. He quickly dodged the entanglement of the 2 men in black and stood in front of Grand Secretary Kong. He attacked quickly, and the shadows of his palms filled the sky, hitting the 4 men in black. He originally thought that he could send them flying, but he did not expect that they would take the hit head-on. They only spat out blood, but they did not retreat. Instead, they got closer. The 4 men in black pounced at the same time and hugged him. Chapter 119. Chu Li suddenly appeared behind Grand Secretary Kong and punched 2 men in black. Then a cold light flashed on his waist, and 2 heads were cut off. Blood gushed out like a fountain. Chu Li continued to swing his long sword, and 2 more heads flew up along with the blood. The remaining 2 black-robed men were finally killed by the Grandmaster. He directly smashed their heads into mush. The whole house was filled with the smell of blood. Grand Secretary Kong frowned and covered his nose. His face was pale. He was tough and calm in the face of disaster, but he could not withstand the physiological impact. He wanted to vomit. Chu Li closed fists, saluted, and smiled. "You are frightened, Grand Secretary." "Thank you, hero. May I know who you are?" Grand Secretary Kong closed fist saluted and said, Chu said, I am a guard of the public house. Farewell. He disappeared in front of the two and returned to the courtyard. The courtyard was quiet. The commotion in the distance could be heard faintly. Xiaoqi had already woken up, but she sat on the bed without moving. Although Mulin was an innate master, he was not vigilant and slept soundly. The entire Grand Secretary residence was in motion. The protectors were dispatched to search for the fish that escaped the net. Xiaoqi got off the bed and pushed the door to the courtyard. She saw Chu Li sitting in the pagoda and sat in front of him. Grand Secretary Kang's birthday banquet is not easy. Don't disturb second eldest sister. Xiaoqi lowered her voice. Xiaoshi's body was weak, and she did not sleep well. Even a small movement could wake her up. If she could not sleep, her body would deteriorate. Chu Li said softly, Too many enemies. Xiaoqi said lightly, They are all people who bully the weak and fear the strong. Chu Li nodded. It was human nature to bully the weak and fear the strong. Their enemies were Grand Secretary Kong and the High Duke's public house. If they dared to go to the High Duke's public house, the High Duke's public house would definitely launch a storm of attacks and uproot them. Now that Grand Secretary Kong had retired, they dared to be arrogant. Otherwise, they would not have endured for so many years. Footsteps came from outside and quickly stopped. Chu Li disappeared in a flash and appeared in front of a group of protectors. He closed fist saluted. These 3 people are up to no good and have been executed. Please be careful. My lady's body is not good. She will wake up easily. Is that Protector Chu? The leader of the 12 guards was a middle-aged man. He lowered his voice. Master has instructed us not to disturb the young lady's peace and quiet. We shall take our leave. Thank you, Protector Chu, for your help. Chu Li gave a fist salute. The guards picked up the 3 corpses and left quietly. Chu Li appeared in front of Xiaoqi in a flash. Xiaoqi looked at him. Chu Li said in a low voice, There were 3 fellows who wanted to come here. I was afraid that they would disturb the lady's sweet dreams, so I killed them. You? Xiaoqi shook her head. This is the scholar's residence. Don't mess around. It will be troublesome if he killed the wrong person. After all, this was not his own mansion. Moreover, the other party might feel that he had overstepped his bounds and would be unhappy. Chu Li agreed with a smile. The next day, after dinner, Chu Li and Guimulin left the public house and toured around Jinghai town. Co Chi and Co Shi went to see Grand Secretary Kong. Although Jinghai City wasn't big, it was bustling. The 2 of them ate lunch before returning to the small courtyard. Co Shi was playing the guzheng in the pagoda, while Co Chi was reading a book. The bamboo forest rustled, and the small courtyard was quiet and elegant. Seeing that the 2 of them had returned, Co Shi pressed the strings of the guzheng and looked at him with a smile. Chu Li, did you save Grand Secretary Kong last night? Chu Li smiled. Yes, it was just a small favor. Grand Secretary Kong, thank you. Hey, these tiger paintings are for you. Co Chi pointed at a purple lacquer box on the stone table. They are all treasures and worth a lot. Tiger paintings? Chu Li was overjoyed. He quickly went forward and opened the box. There were a total of 6 paintings. He opened them one by one. Each of the tiger paintings had their own characteristics and were full of vigor. All of them were exquisite works of art. Chu Li understood. The artists of this world often use their own imagination to draw tigers. They condensed the fiercest existence in their impression into the tiger painting. It was the fiercest spirit. Chu Li gained a lot from these paintings. Seeing that Chu Li was grinning from ear to ear, Mulin took a few glances. He did not think that there was anything good to look at. He shook his head. Instead of looking at this, why not look at the meridian diagram? What's there to look at? Chu Li smiled. This vigor is so strong. Mulin did not think much of it. He smiled. Grand Secretary Kong only gave me this? Isn't he too stingy? What does Elder Mulin want? Co Shi smiled. As a Grand Secretary, you must have some rare ancient books, right? Mulin said, Those are the real thing. Elder Mulin wants to seal the vitality finger? Co Shi asked with a smile. Mulin coughed awkwardly. I just want to take a look. Co Shi said, I've asked Grand Secretary Kong before. He has also heard of the vitality finger. Mulin said disapprovingly. Oh, as expected of a Grand Secretary. You even know about this. The Grand Secretary knows the world, CO sure smiled. Not everyone can be called a Grand Secretary. Grand Secretary Kong has a photographic memory. He went through all the books in the Amethyst Light Pavilion. The books in the Imperial Court's Amethyst Light Pavilion are more abundant than our public house. Then does he know the solution to the Vitality Finger? Yes, just like what Chu Li said. Is there no other way? No. CO sure looked at Chu Li. Chu Li, do you dare to help me? Chu Li smiled. Why wouldn't I dare? CO sure said, if Elder Mulin is diagnosed, if it's really the Vitality Finger, you will help me solve it. I'll go back and figure out this Vitality Finger. I'll study it carefully. Mulin said, what if it's not? Chu Li looked at the painting, smiled, and shook his head. Chu Li visualized the art of White Tiger in his mind. A white tiger leaped into the void of his mind and made various postures to attract the invisible force from the void into his body, strengthening his body. As the aura of the white tiger grew, the invisible force in the void became more and more vigorous. When he first saw the sun cultivating white tiger portrait, this invisible force was like a gentle breeze. Now, it had become a strong gust of wind. He could clearly feel that every time he cultivated, his body would become slightly stronger. After a long period of accumulation, he did not know how strong he would become. In the following 2 days, the Grand Secretary's residence was very lively, but there were no more assassinations. The failure of that group of people made those who were eager to make trouble understand that the Grand Secretary's residence was not that easy to break into. Chongming Town Southgate. The passers-by slowed down their footsteps and kept their mouths shut. They passed by silently. A group of protectors from the public house surrounded a handsome middle-aged man. They were motionless, and a murderous aura filled the air. The passers-by did not dare to make a sound. The handsome middle-aged man had sharp eyebrows and bright eyes. He stood there quietly. His luxurious temperament was naturally revealed. People did not dare to look at him directly. It was the eldest master of the E-Public House, CO Tying. Master, I'll send someone to take a look. The elder in the green robe beside CO Tying said in a low voice. CO Tying waved his hand. No need. Just wait for a while. Yes. The elder with white eyebrows and beard said in a low voice. This elder's eyebrows and beard were all white. His face was ruddy like a baby's. It showed that he had a profound cultivation level. CO Tying said, Lin Quan, when can you get the longevity grass? Master, it's already on the way. Lin Quan said in a low voice. It will probably take half a month to enter the public house. Good. CO Tying said. There must be no accidents. After taking this, I believe that second younger sister's body will recover. Chapter 120. CO Tying scoffed. The Republic House is getting more and more out of hand. If it wasn't for third younger sister, second younger sister would have been dead. Lu Yurong has really gone crazy. Master, I don't think her target is the second lady. The key is our grandmasters. They sent 7 grandmasters over. It's obvious that they want to get rid of our grandmasters. Elder Lin Quan said. Yes, third younger sister thinks so too. CO Tying scoffed. She really thinks we're made of mud. Master, it's not the right time to start a war. Lin Quan said softly. CO Tying said. We have to teach Lu Yurong a lesson. She's too reckless. They've suffered heavy losses this time. They've lost a grandmaster. Their strength has been greatly reduced. At least they've vented their anger. Lin Quan smiled. Congratulations, third lady. You have such a talented subordinate. This Chu Li. CO Tying frowned. Lin Quan said, Master, do you have any concerns? He's young and not mature enough. Plus, he's only been in the public house for a short time. CO Tying said, I don't feel safe using him. He risked his life to save second lady. Lin Quan smiled. There's no doubt that he's loyal. As for being mature, he's still young. It's not a good thing to be too mature. That's true. CO Tying nodded slowly. I'm being too harsh. No matter what, I have to reward him for saving second younger sister. Lin Quan smiled. I'm sure third lady will reward him well. Master, you don't have to worry. Co Tang, this third younger sister, Co Tang said helplessly. I can't do anything about her. Third lady has put in a lot of effort. Lin Quan said, third lady is talented enough. Master, why do you have to bear all the burden? It's not a bad idea to let third lady share her burden. Among the four of us, third younger sister has the highest talent in martial arts. Although fourth younger brother is good, he's still far behind third younger sister. We'll have to count on third younger sister in the future, but she has to be distracted by mundane tasks. Co Tang shook his head and sighed. There's no point persuading her. In order to step into the heavenly god realm, the most important thing was one's comprehension and talent. Although he and his fourth brother's talent was not bad, it was far from his third sister's. They had no hope of reaching the heavenly god realm, but his third sister had a chance. Once they stepped into the enlightened mastery's boundary, the High Duke's public house would no longer have to worry. No one would dare to provoke them. Even the imperial family would not dare to touch the Shao clan. This was the real help to the High Duke's public house. Although he was tired, he was still in the prime of his life, so he could still bear it. However, third sister didn't agree with his idea and kept distracting him. He knew she was doing it out of kindness, which made him angry and helpless. Lin Quan smiled and shook his head. The four siblings were very close to each other. Perhaps it was because the High Duke had always been in isolation and their mothers were no longer around, so they supported each other and had a deep bond. Moreover, there were no conflicts of interest. The eldest son inherited the house of High Duke. The youngest son was a martial arts fanatic. The second lady had a delicate body, and the third lady had an unworldly heart. They worked together to reverse the decline of the house of High Duke. They're here. Co Tang suddenly shouted. In the distance, a cloud of yellow dust rose up from the main road as a group of people slowly approached. It was Xiao Shi, Xiao Qi, and the others. Co Tang could not wait to welcome them. Xiao Qi's white robe was still spotless, and her expression was cold. She got off her horse in front of Co Tang and looked around. Big brother, what's with such a big crowd? Co Tang smiled. You've done a great service this time, of course. We have to welcome you. Xiao Qi knew what he was talking about. Her expression was calm. It's all right. Xiao Shi opened the curtain of the carriage, revealing her face with a white veil. She looked around and raised her voice in dissatisfaction. Big brother, why did you bring so many people? Let's go back to the house. Yes, let's go back. Co Tang quickly nodded and asked carefully, second sister, how's your body? Yes, it's quite good. Co Shi put down the curtain and sat back down. Co Tang followed beside the horse carriage and walked together with Xiao Qi. His eagle-like eyes swept across Hai Qingshan and Chu Li, stopping on Chu Li's face. Chu Li closed fists saluted. Co Tang nodded and turned back to talk to Xiao Qi. When Xue Ling saw that Chu Li had returned, her expression was cold. She only made a few more dishes and a jar of wine. She served him attentively, but did not show any happy expression. It was as if she did not care about him coming and going. Chu Li raised his cup and gently swirled it. The white jade cup reflected the green wine. It was full of vitality. He could not help but have the urge to drink it all in one gulp. He wanted to drink the vitality together with it. Did anything happen these few days? Chu Li asked casually. The breeze was gentle and the bright moon shone its light. The scenery of the courtyard was beautiful. The bamboo forest at the west corner rustled like the sound of nature. Xue Ling was dressed in a spotless white robe. Her face was cold, nothing much. Oh, right, Master's good friend is in the limelight. Chu Li glanced at her. Xue Ling said, Sister Zhao Ying. What happened to her? Chu Li frowned. Xue Ling said, someone was causing trouble in the Leisure Cloud pub. Sister Zhao Ying made a move and broke the legs of more than 10 people. Who were they? Chu Li scoffed and said impatiently, Tell me everything in one breath. It seems that a group of disciples from the Phoenix Tree faction came to the Leisure Cloud pub and teased the maid of the pub. They angered Sister Zhao Ying. Sister Zhao Ying broke all their legs and threw them outside the pub. Their screams were terrifying. I heard that the business of the Leisure Cloud pub is even better now. Xueling said everything in one breath. Chu Li frowned. Is it really Sister Zhao Ying? It can't be wrong. I confirmed it. Xueling nodded hard. Master doesn't believe me. Chu Li scoffed. It seems that those people went too far. Sister Zhao Ying's temper was very soft. She was not suitable for the martial arts world. She would not make a move easily. To be able to break their legs in a moment of anger. This group of people from the Phoenix Tree faction must have done something wrong. They must have really angered Zhao Ying for her to be so heavy-handed. Xueling said, the Phoenix Tree faction is also considered a big faction. They dared to be presumptuous in the town. Of course, their martial arts are not bad. I heard that they have a few innate masters. In the end, they were still taken care of by Sister Zhao Ying. Sister Zhao Ying's reputation is now very good. Chu Li nodded thoughtfully. Zhao Ying's swallow blade technique was exquisite. She had a deep understanding of it. In addition to her innate mastery, the average innate master could not beat her. He glanced at Xueling and smiled. You are very envious of Sister Zhao Ying, right? Master, when can I be like Sister Zhao Ying? Xueling's bright eyes stared at him. If you want to break through to the innate mastery's boundary, it will be much more difficult than Sister Zhao Ying. Take your time. Xueling looked disappointed and sighed. I'll help you circulate after eating. Chu Li drank his wine. Xueling filled his cup. Her cold face showed a smile. Thank you, Master. She had been persisting in practicing hard these days. However, the result made her feel even more hopeless. She had been practicing hard these days, but it was not as good as Master helping her practice for a night. The gap between people was too big. One was heaven, while the other was earth. Heaven was unfair. Chapter 121. After dinner, Chu Li helped her cultivate for the whole night. His spirit was strong, and Xueling's progress was extremely fast. In just one night, she had broken through 2 acupuncture points. She was one step closer to the innate mastery boundary. A smile appeared on Xueling's cold face. During breakfast the next day, Suru arrived in a yellow gown. Her face was bright, and her eyes were smiling. She entered the courtyard and glanced at the Gloriesville tree first. The height of the Gloriesville tree had already reached her waist, and its growth was gratifying. Her smile grew even wider as she gracefully walked to the gazebo and sat in front of Chu Li. Chu Li smelled the fragrance from her body and smiled. What's so happy about, Chief? You've been promoted to the chief. Is that a good thing? Suru chuckled. Xueling carried the white jade teacup into the pagoda and gently passed it to her. She looked at Chu Li in surprise. Suru smiled and said, Xueling, your young master has made a name for himself. From today onwards, he will be promoted to Gloriesville Institute's general manager. Chief of the Gloriesville Institute? Xueling asked doubtfully. I don't think I've heard of the Gloriesville Institute. The Sky Soul Institute is this small courtyard of yours. Suru pursed her lips and smiled. No matter what, the chief is the chief. Chu Li, you can have 10 scribes, 20 protectors, including 2 innate masters. Chu Li shook his head and could not help but laugh. There's no need for so many people. You can summon the guards at the martial arts hall at any time. Suru said, as for the imperial bodyguards, you can choose them at any time. It's up to you whether you want to choose or not. In any case, the Sky Soul Institute will pay you directly. Chu Li smiled. How many? 10,000 taels of silver every month. So many? Xueling's eyes widened. The Sky Soul Institute didn't need to care about the salaries of the guards and guards. The 10,000 taels of silver was used for work and rewards. That's not a lot. Suru took a sip of tea. In the future, if you perform meritorious deeds, it will increase. Have you heard about Zhaoing? I heard the gist of it, but Xueling did not elaborate. This bunch of fellows from Phoenix Tree faction. Suru scoffed. Feng Shirkai has a younger brother who is an elder of Phoenix Tree faction. You got guts. Chu Li's face darkened. They're probably testing the waters. Suru smiled. When Zhaoing made her move, they retreated in fear. Phoenix Tree faction. Chu Li muttered. This phoenix tree faction cannot be underestimated either, Su-Ru said. In recent years, their power has increased greatly, and there are a few young talents in the faction. There are signs of resurgence. They dared to challenge the High Duke's public house. Chu Li frowned. Zhao Ying's identity was by no means a secret. A simple investigation would reveal that attacking Zhao Ying in Chongming town was equivalent to provoking the High Duke's public house. Su-Ru sneered. Our manor has been weak these few years, and people are looking down on us more and more. By provoking our manor, Phoenix Tree faction has made a name for themselves, and they have a wishful thinking. Aren't you afraid of the guards? They also calculated their limits. The only thing they miscalculated was that they didn't expect Zhao Ying's martial arts to be so powerful. Su-Ru pursed her lips and smiled. Who could see that the delicate and weak Zhao Ying has such martial arts? It's all thanks to you. Chu Li waved his hand. They are honest this time. They know that the High Duke's public house is not a place that any Tom, Dick, or Harry can provoke. Su-Ru scoffed and laughed again. Speaking of which, it's still Zhao Ying who did the work. Sister Zhao Ying has worked hard, Chu Li sighed. Since the opening of the Leisure Cloud pub, Zhao Ying had been sitting there. She did not leave even for a moment, as she was afraid that someone would bully those poor women. It's rare that her martial arts did not fall behind, Su-Ru said, but that place is quite suitable for her. Zhao Ying's temper was too soft, and she was not suitable to be a protector outside the public house. She had already suggested to the Martial Arts Hall to set up the protector of the Leisure Cloud pub as a mission, so that Zhao Ying would not need to go on other missions and could always stay in the Leisure Cloud pub. Chu Li changed the topic. Chief, can the art of White Tiger be taught to outsiders? Who do you want to teach it to? Su-Ru was surprised. This was an ancient martial art. It was mysterious and unpredictable. The first and second volumes were combined into one, and it was a rare torso tuning technique. Although the threshold was a little high and the average person could not cultivate it. Chu Li said, the Sisters of the Leisure Cloud pub, they can cultivate it? Su-Ru laughed. Stop joking. If the lady could not cultivate it, could they? That was simply impossible. I have a trick. What is it? The Buddhist sex enlightenment technique. No matter what method, Su-Ru said disapprovingly. Didn't you say that forcefully cultivating it would hurt your spirit? I can add the art of White Tiger into the beginner's basics section. First, I'll cultivate the basics. Then, I'll slowly cultivate the art of White Tiger. There's such a good thing, Su-Ru said. Then let me try it first. Can be taught to them? Su-Ru frowned and thought for a while. I'll have to ask the lady. Chu Li nodded. This was reasonable. The art of White Tiger was priceless. How could it be taught to others so easily? Not only was it unfair, it would also cause trouble in the future. Su-Ru said, try to enlighten me first. Let's see if your method works. Chu Li smiled. Chief, do you really dare to try it? Do you think you can harm me? Su-Ru smiled disapprovingly. When do you want to try it? I can do it now. Come on then. Su-Ru put down her teacup. Chu Li got up and sat beside her. He smiled. Chief, calm down. As he spoke, he slowly pressed his right palm on top of Su-Ru's head. Su-Ru did not move. She looked at him with a smile. The two of them were very close. He could hear her breathing. Her breath smelled like orchids. Her eyes were as clear as the lake. Her skin was smooth, and her facial features were delicate. The closer he got to her, the more beautiful she became. Close your eyes, Chu Li said. Su-Ru closed her eyes and smiled. That's it. Chu Li did not answer. He performed the Buddhist enlightenment technique and poured the art of White Tiger into her mind. Through looking at the ferocious tiger portrait, Chu Li gained a great understanding. Observing from the sidelines, he expanded the sun, cultivating White Tiger portrait. Every tiger portrait could be transformed into a sun-cultivating White Tiger portrait. However, their auras differed, and their effects were also different. They were divided into different grades. The aura of the White Tiger that was poured into Su-Ru's mind was weak. Through this art of White Tiger, she could absorb the invisible force in the void like a gentle breeze. The effect was weak, but it could be accumulated to a certain extent. Chu Li let go of her hand. Su-Ru opened her eyes and then closed them again. She tried to visualize it in her mind. Sure enough, there was a white tiger jumping and making movements. There was a weak force entering her body. It really is the art of white tiger. She stared at Chu Li in surprise. Chu Li smiled. Cultivate for a while first. When your spirit is stronger, then you can cultivate the next one. Chu Li, you're amazing, Saru said excitedly. She understood Chu Li's plan. He weakened the aura of the white tiger. The effect might be weaker, but it was better than not being able to cultivate at all. The original art of white tiger's requirements were too high. Normal people could not cultivate it. She could not wait to get up. She waved at Chu Li and fluttered out of the courtyard. Xueling looked at him curiously. Chu Li said, "You can't cultivate it." "Why?" Xueling asked disappointedly. Chu Li smiled. "It's best to try the torso tuning technique when you reach the innate mastery's boundary." Although the art of white tiger was mysterious, he did not know if it would hinder the breakthrough to the innate mastery's boundary. Chun Ying and the others were different. They were old, and their foundations were damaged. He planned to let them walk another path. The innate mastery's boundary. Xueling's cold face showed helplessness. It was too far to reach. Suru quickly returned and smiled. Lady Xiao agreed, but only the first half of the book. And Chu Li was listening attentively. Suru said, "You're only allowed to teach them through enlightenment. You can't look at the secret book." The inheritance obtained through enlightenment was different from the secret book. It could only be learned by accident and cannot be passed down through words. Drawing the white tiger in one's mind onto a piece of paper, not to mention how good one's drawing skills must be, it would be useless for others to see it. "Thank you, Lady Xiao," Chu Li smiled. Chapter 122. When Chu Li arrived at the mansion in the city, the ladies were all there. When they saw him, they all looked at him in surprise. Zhao Ying glared at him resentfully. Chu Li smiled at the ladies. They were busy with their own things and were not idle at all. Some were embroidering, some were pruning, some were cultivating, some were cutting clothes, and some were reading. The entire residence was bustling with activity. Zhao Ying was dressed in a green gown. Her footsteps were light as she welcomed him. "Senior brother." Chu Li smiled. "Thank you for your hard work, junior sister. How have you been lately? You're not going out this time, right?" Zhao Ying snorted. "It can calm down for a while." Chu Li smiled. "What's going on with the Phoenix Tree faction?" Zhao Ying's pretty face immediately darkened, and she snorted, "Don't mention them. Lecher scum." Chu Li smiled. "Do you want me to teach them a lesson?" Zhao Ying pursed her red lips, thought about it, and nodded. "It's good to teach them a lesson. These people are too bad. A bunch of people are bad. The Phoenix Tree faction isn't any good either." She was angry at the thought of that time. These scoundrels wanted all the women in Leisure Cloud Pub to have fun with them. Otherwise, they would come and cause trouble every day, causing Leisure Cloud Pub to be unable to do business. If they didn't have money to eat, they would definitely beg them to play with them. Listening to these filthy words, she couldn't bear it anymore and directly broke their legs. Thinking about it in hindsight, he was still too soft-hearted. He should have just crippled those scoundrels so that they could no longer do evil. Chu Li said, "Leave it to me." "Senior brother, is everything going smoothly?" Zhao Ying said. "You shouldn't have left the residence." She knew that the Tempest Temple and the Rin Public House wanted to kill him. Chu Li smiled and agreed. He waved at Chuning, who was cutting the flowers. Chuning was dressed in a bluish-white gown. Her slender almond-shaped eyes were bright and alluring. She pointed at herself, and Chu Li nodded. Chuning put down the scissors and looked at him curiously. Chu Li said, "Junior sister, follow me with Chuning." He brought the two women into the quiet room. This quiet room was for him to practice martial arts. The layout was extremely simple. There was only a bed and a table. On the wall hung the word quiet. There was nothing else. Zhao Ying asked, "Senior brother, what's the matter?" Chu Li muttered, "I've obtained a set of acupuncture techniques that can help me build my foundation, but it's risky." "How long will it take to build the foundation?" "One night should be enough." "Really? What kind of acupuncture technique is that?" 9 transformation meridian reforming technique. Chu Li smiled. You probably haven't heard of it. I got it from Senior Guamulin. High official Gua. Zhao Ying suddenly understood. Guamulin's position in the public house was extraordinary. His medical skills were outstanding, and he was in charge of the second lady's health care. Chu Li looked at Chun Ying, who had been quiet all this while. Chun Ying, the 9-transformation meridian reforming technique can help you build your foundation overnight, but it's very risky. You might even lose your life. You have to think about it carefully. Chun Ying said without hesitation, Master, I want to try. Chu Li sighed and nodded. He understood the thoughts of the girls very well. They hated being weak the most. As long as there was a chance to become stronger, they would not let it go, even if it meant risking their lives. Sit on the bed, Chu Li said. I'll teach you something first. Remember, don't tell anyone else. Yes. Chun Ying took off her boots and sat cross-legged on the couch with her back straight. Chu Li turned to look at Zhao Ying. Zhao Ying quickly said, I know. I will keep quiet. Chu Li nodded in satisfaction. He took out a box from his pocket. There were 3 layers in total. There were wooden needles, silver needles, and gold needles. Zhao Ying's eyes widened in curiosity. She did not even blink. Chu Li raised his right palm and placed it on Chun Ying's vitals. He did not move. Chun Ying slowly closed her eyes as if she was going to sleep. Zhao Ying looked at Chu Li in confusion. She did not understand what he was doing. She noticed that Chun Ying's eyelids were trembling rapidly. This made her even more curious. Chu Li quickly let go of his hand and said in a deep voice, Keep visualizing, don't get distracted. He picked up the wooden needles with both hands and quickly inserted them into Chun Ying's body. Then, he inserted 2 more needles. In one go, he inserted 109 needles. Chun Ying became like a hedgehog. Zhao Ying's eyes widened. She looked at Chun Ying calmly, as if she did not feel anything. Zhao Ying, on the other hand, felt numb all over. Suddenly, a gust of wind blew in the room. The gentle breeze kept blowing on her cheeks. Zhao Ying looked around. The window was not open. How could there be wind? The cool breeze blew past her. Chun Ying's clothes were fixed by the needles. It could not flutter. Only her beautiful black hair fluttered. Zhao Ying looked at Chu Li. Chu Li smiled and gestured for her not to speak. As time passed, the wind gradually increased. The gentle breeze became stronger. Zhao Ying's clothes fluttered as if a strong gust of wind was blowing. It was like this from noon until evening. The wind gradually weakened. The setting sun shone through the window and dyed the room red. Chu Li suddenly retrieved all the needles. Chun Ying slowly opened her eyes. Zhao Ying noticed that her eyes were clear and full of energy. Although she could not tell that she was practicing martial arts, she felt that she was not as weak as before. Master! Chun Ying clenched her jade-like hands. She felt the surging power in her body. She looked at Chu Li in surprise. Chu Li said, From now on, you can practice martial arts. But don't practice the heart technique. Only practice the white tiger illustration that I passed to you. Yes. Chun Ying agreed without hesitation. She asked, Master, why don't you practice the heart technique? Chu Li said, The white tiger illustration that I passed to you is very mysterious. You can practice it at any time. Other heart techniques may not be as useful as it. Yes. Chun Ying did not ask any more questions. She also knew that she started late. It was already late for her to practice martial arts. Chu Li must have thought of this situation before he passed the white tiger illustration to her. She hesitated for a moment. Master, do you want to give everyone acupuncture? Whoever wants to practice martial arts, I will give them acupuncture. Everyone wants to practice martial arts. One by one, take your time. Thank you, Master. Chun Ying said, Let's have dinner here tonight. All right. Chu Li nodded. Let Chen Shui come over. You guys go ahead. Yes. Chun Ying agreed and went out. Chen Shui quickly came in. Chu Li first imbued her with the sun-cultivating white tiger illustration, and then he gave her acupuncture. It was completed in the middle of the night. All the women returned to the public house. It became more lively. Chu Li did not return to the public house. He stayed and rested. The next morning, he taught the women the sun-cultivating white tiger illustration and performed the 9-transformation meridian reforming technique. He prepared 10 sets of needles. With his strong spirit, he gave 10 people acupuncture at once. 3 days passed in the blink of an eye. All the women had successfully built their foundation and began to cultivate the sun, cultivating white tiger illustration. Chuli had not thought of what martial arts to teach them that would allow them to unleash the power of the sun, cultivating white tiger illustration. Palm techniques were not enough. He planned to teach them claw techniques or fist techniques. He even prepared to let them practice flying knives. He pushed open the door and entered the courtyard. A rich and pure spiritual energy entered his body. Chuli sighed comfortably. Shui was cultivating. When she saw him, she looked at him. "Master, what happened?" Chuli waved his hand and sat back in the pagoda. Shui served him tea. She looked at his face. "Why do you look so haggard?" Chuli had been using the 9-transformation meridian reforming technique and the 9-transformation meridian reforming technique for the past 3 days. Even with his strong spirit, he could not take it. He looked as if he had not slept for 2 days. Chuli said, "It's nothing." "Master, did you go to the new moon brothel?" Shui scoffed. Chuli glared at her. Shui pouted and changed the topic. "Master, I heard something happen in the public house." Chuli raised his eyebrows. Shui knew that he was urging her to tell him quickly. She whispered, "It seems like someone robbed our things. Who will be so bold?" Chuli frowned. "They're in public house? It must be something extraordinary, right?" Chapter 123. Chuli frowned. Ferric Demon Ridge. Yes, it's said to be a small mountain on Jinghai Road. It's not very famous. Are they crazy? How dare they cut off the public house's path? He doesn't seem to know that it belongs to our mansion. Chuli seemed to be deep in thought. It seems like it's really something important. Ferric Demon Ridge must be unlucky to transport it in secret without revealing his identity. It must be something extraordinary to be able to make Master Xiao Taiying so angry. As the eldest son of the House of High Dukes, he had lived a luxurious life since he was young. He would not care about ordinary things. Anything that could make him angry must be rare and valuable. The Ferric Demon Ridge was going to be in big trouble. Ling said, "Master Xiao Taiying has already sent someone to investigate. The Ferric Demon Ridge will face another calamity this time." Chuli smiled. "What exactly is it?" "It's just the Ferric Demon Ridge. It's not even worth mentioning. We'll catch up to them soon." Shui scoffed. "These people deserve to die." Chuli said, They're bound to run into ghosts at night. They've definitely done this kind of thing before. If we can get rid of them, we'll get rid of them. We'll get rid of a scourge for the martial arts world." Ling agreed with him. She hated these robbers to the core. She did not know how many innocent people would be harmed by them. "Master, this matter has nothing to do with us," Ling said. "Let's think about how to build the Glories Will courtyard. How many people are you planning to choose?" "I haven't decided yet," Chuli replied. "If there were too many people, it would be troublesome. If there were too few people, it would be inconvenient." He couldn't make a decision in a short time and needed to think about it carefully. If he chose people hastily, it would be more troublesome to replace them in the future. Fortunately, Miss didn't rush him and gave him enough time. "The place of business is in our courtyard. What do you think?" "Let's choose another place," Ling said hurriedly. She now regarded this small courtyard as her own home and did not want anyone to disturb her. Chuli asked, "Where should I choose?" "Master, if we choose the Jade Guardian Island, then the scribe can only be female," Ling said. "Lady Xiao doesn't like stinky men around her. She thinks they're irritating." Chuli could not help but laugh. Ling's eyes widened and she said seriously, "It's true." Chuli laughed. "Aren't the protectors of the Jade Guardian Island all stinky men?" Although the protectors of the Jade Guardian Island consisted of both women and men, he knew that Xiao Qi was indeed a neat freak and did not like men getting close to her. Ling said, "The male protectors are all on the outer perimeter. Look at the inner perimeter of the Jade Guardian Island. Where are the men?" Chuli nodded lightly. What Ling said was true. Ling said, "In my opinion, it's better to build it outside the island." Chuli frowned and shook his head. Ling was shocked. "Are you really going to build it here? I can't leave the Jade Guardian Island." Chu Li said. Shuai looked at him in confusion. Chu Li said, our courtyard is used to plant spirit herbs, and they're all rare spirit herbs. We shouldn't let outsiders find them. The name of Glory's Will Courtyard is to hide it. If we were to really build a courtyard outside the island, it would go against the original intention. Oh, so the Glory's Will Courtyard is just a cover. We don't have to worry too much about it, right? Chu Li smiled. If I can't think of spirit herbs when I mention the Glory's Will Courtyard, that would be the best. The Sky Soul Institute's function was to investigate traitors, similar to a special agency. Only by striking fear in others could it be considered a success. Without such deterrence, it would only prove one's incompetence. Shuai Ling smiled. Then where should we build it? It can't be Lady Zhao's stargazing tower, right? Chu Li said. The courtyard next to it is empty, right? Yes, Shuai Ling nodded. Then let's build it next to it, Chu Li said. It's more convenient this way. We can only find female scribes and protectors. Shuai Ling stared at him without blinking. Chu Li smiled. We'll see. Shuai Ling pouted her red lips. Chu Li said, we won't recruit anyone for now. Let's wait and see. The Glory's Will Courtyard was to investigate traitors, so he did not have to do it himself. Women were more meticulous and patient. They could endure those tedious tasks. However, it was a little troublesome to manage these women. He did not want to be in charge of ordinary women all day long. He would lose his authority and become a laughingstock. Useless. Useless. Xiao tying through the teacup on the floor. The porcelain pieces flew everywhere. He panted heavily and paced back and forth. His handsome face was pale. There were two people standing in the hall, Lin Quan and a middle-aged man. They did not look good either. Xiao tying paced back and forth a dozen times. He suppressed his anger and said in a deep voice, Brother Tying, tell me. A small ferric demon ridge could snatch the longevity grass. Do you believe it? You'll laugh your head off if this gets out. The middle-aged man said helplessly, Master, the people from the ferric demon ridge are really powerful. We miscalculated. What's worse is that there was a master of light body technique among them. He snatched the longevity grass and ran away. We couldn't catch up with him no matter how hard we tried. Who is it? Xiao Tying asked coldly. The middle-aged man shook his head. He covered his face. I can't recognize him. You don't know how to investigate? Xiao Tying said impatiently. You don't need me to teach you this, do you? Master, we interrogated the people from the ferric demon ridge. They don't know either. The middle-aged man said helplessly. They're also very angry. They feel that they have been robbed and that they are working for someone else. The mantis stalks the cicada, unaware of the oriole behind. Oof. Xiao Tying sneered. What good plan? The middle-aged man said, This person is short and skinny. His light body technique is top-notch, and he is an innate master. A grandmaster can't stop an innate master. Huh. Xiao Tying curled his lips. It seems that this guy's light body technique is top-notch. This shouldn't be difficult to investigate, right? An innate master in front of grandmaster was like a child in front of an adult. This was a deep-rooted belief in everyone. If Chu Li did not kill a grandmaster last time, Xiao Tying would not believe this at all. An innate master could escape from a grandmaster's palm. He needed to have an extremely strong light body technique. There were only a few in the martial arts world who could do that. Coupled with the body, it was not that difficult to investigate. The middle-aged man said, Initial speculation is that it might be the celestial monkey. Celestial monkey Jiang Kuai? Xiao Tying frowned. Did the news leak? Impossible. The middle-aged man shook his head. We used the most trustworthy ones. It's impossible for the news to be leaked. Then how did Jiang Kuai know? It's probably a coincidence. What a coincidence. Xiao Tying said coldly. It's a coincidence. The longevity grass is gone. Jiang Kuai might have eaten it. Master, most people don't recognize the longevity grass, the middle-aged man said. Xiao Tying scoffed. Who is Jiang Kuai? How could he not recognize the longevity grass? Lin Quan, who had white hair and a youthful face, did not speak. At this time, he interrupted, Master, if it's Jiang Kuai, then don't blame Elder Huang. Co. Tying nodded with a gloomy face. Jiang Kuai's light body technique was top-notch. It was rare. Even a grandmaster could not compare to him. If it's Jiang Kuai, Master, I'm afraid the longevity grass. Lingquan said helplessly. Let's make other plans. Even if Jiang Kuai did not eat it, it was impossible to chase it back. Jiang Kuai's light body technique was top-notch. Even if they sent a few grandmasters, they might not be able to catch up. Master, should we release the news? The middle-aged man gritted his teeth and scoffed. We can't get it, but we can't let Jiang Kuai take advantage of us. Once they know it's the longevity grass, they'll fight for it. It's useless. Co. Tying's handsome face became gloomier. Jiang Kuai's light body technique was top-notch. His behavior was also strange. There was no way to catch a shadow. Damn it. Co. Tying slammed his palm on the sandalwood coffee table. He gritted his teeth. Jiang Kuai, he had gone through a lot of hardships to get this longevity grass. As long as she consumed the longevity grass, his second sister's body would get better. She would no longer be sick and weak. She would no longer suffer. However, at the last moment, all his efforts were in vain. He could not wait to tear Jiang Kuai apart. Chapter 124. Xiaoqi stepped into the hall lightly, and the hall seemed to brighten up a little. Her cold eyes glanced at the broken pieces of the teacup and the palm print on the sandalwood tea table. She looked at Co. Tying, who had a gloomy face, and said, Big brother, what happened? Co. Tying gritted his teeth and scoffed. The longevity grass was stolen. Xiaoqi frowned and glanced at the middle-aged man. Uncle Song, what happened? The middle-aged man said awkwardly, Third lady, we were ambushed by the Ferric Demon Ridge. It might be the celestial monkey who took advantage of the situation and stole the longevity grass. It might be the celestial monkey. Xiaoqi's face darkened. To be able to steal something under Elder Huang's nose, his body movement technique is extremely fast, and with his thin body, even if he covered his face, it's most likely the celestial monkey. Xiaoqi said coldly, How dare Jiang Kuai? She turned to Co. Tying. Her bright eyes flashed, but she did not say much. The feeling of falling short at the last step must be torturing Big Brother to the point of madness. It was useless to blame him for not being thorough. The most important thing now was to get back the longevity grass. This was the only chance for second eldest sister to recover. Co. Tying took a deep breath and suppressed his depression. He said in a low voice, Third younger sister, what's the matter? I want Chu Li to take charge of a courtyard. Xiaoqi said, I build a new Gloriesville courtyard and let him be the chief. Nonsense. Co. Tying said impatiently, How old is he? How long has he been in the public house? Do you think he could be a chief just like that? Xiaoqi said lightly, He is now rank 5 and risked his life to save second eldest sister. His loyalty is unquestionable, and he is extremely capable. I plan to let him share some of my responsibilities and be responsible for eliminating the traitors in the public house. Co. Tying frowned. Can he bear it? No one can match your ability. He knew that third younger sister's unique ability was to see through people's hearts, so she could easily find traitors. Others did not have this ability and could not do what she did. Xiaoqi said, He has been cultivating Buddhism since he was young. His cultivation level is very high, and he can see through people's hearts. Even if he can't do what I can, he is qualified to find traitors. Co. Tying frowned in silence. He still felt that Chu Li was too young and had only been in the public house for a short period of time. His feelings for the public house were not as deep as the people who had lived in the public house since he was young. Thus, he did not feel at ease using him. Saving second younger sister was most likely a man's momentary impulse in the face of a beautiful woman. It could not be simply attributed to loyalty. Xiaoqi glanced at him faintly. Big brother, are you still worried about me using people? That's true. Co. Tying suddenly realized that his third sister could read people's minds. Chu Li's loyalty was not something to worry about. Xiao Qi said, I'm prepared to give the glories will courtyard 10,000 taels of silver every month. 10,000 taels is not a lot. Co. Tying nodded and sighed. Can he really do it? The longevity grass has been taken by the celestial monkey. I'm afraid we won't be able to get it back. Co. Qi frowned. The news must have been leaked. Impossible. Co. Tying shook his head. They are the most trustworthy people. How can there be such a coincidence? Xiao Qi muttered. How about this? Let Chuli investigate it. Co. Tying shook his head. His rank is not high enough. The people who delivered the longevity grass this time were all his confidants. They were loyal and reliable. If Xiao Qi investigated it, they could still suppress it. If it was Chuli, they would definitely be dissatisfied, and he would be the one who would have a headache. Xiao Qi said, Then let Chuli rise a rank. Rise another rank? Co. Tying could not help but laugh. He's rising fast enough. With his contribution of saving second eldest sister, why can't he rise a rank? Xiao Qi said faintly. If it wasn't for Eldergu's pill, he would definitely be dead this time. It's so disappointing that he can't rise a rank for such a life-risking act. As soon as Co. Sure was mentioned, Co. Ting immediately softened and remained silent. Big brother, do you have a prejudice against Chuli? Xiao Qi said bluntly. Co. Tying said, I just think that he's too young and not stable enough. Chuli is experienced and steady. He's very stable. Xiao Qi scoffed. Just because he's young, you're suppressing his contribution and not letting him rise a rank? All right. Co. Tying said helplessly. Anyway, I can't win against you in an argument. If you're so insistent, then let him rise a rank. Xiao Qi glared at him. Co. Tying said, Of course, he can save second eldest sister. He should indeed rise a rank. Only then did Xiao Qi withdrew her gaze in satisfaction. She said faintly, As for the longevity grass, it's good that second eldest sister doesn't know about it. Otherwise, I'm afraid she'll be seriously ill. I think there must be a problem. This time, it's the longevity grass. What about the next time? Don't tell me the longevity grass is gone, just like that. The longevity grass was extremely rare. Even with the power of the High Duke's public house, they spent a few years looking for it. They finally found one, but it was snatched away. Not to mention the annoyance, it was a huge blow to second eldest sister. She could have recovered, but she lost the chance. Co. Tying gritted his teeth and said coldly, You must kill Jiang Lushi. Xiao Qi said, His light body technique is rare in this world. Who can kill him? Co. Tying was silent. His face was getting uglier. Xiao Qi's words hit his sore spot. Even if the High Duke's public house was powerful, there was nothing they could do. As long as the celestial monkey went to the other 10 roads, or even left the great Ji dynasty, he would be free and unfettered. Xiao Qi said, If he can't kill him and instead provoke his killing intent, what if he attacks second eldest sister when she leaves the public house? Co. Tying's face was getting uglier. Xiao Qi said, Chuli can rise a rank. It's enough to investigate the protectors this time. Third younger sister, do you really think there's something wrong with them? Big brother, do you really believe that this is a coincidence? Maybe it's really a coincidence, Co. Tying said hesitantly. Xiao Qi said, I don't believe in coincidences. Even if it's a coincidence, there's nothing wrong with an investigation. Let's leave this to Chuli. You're helping him establish his authority. Co. Tying said impatiently. You've really painstakingly trained him. All right, I agree, but I have a condition. Say it. You investigate too. Co. Tying said, Don't let him know. The final result depends on whether it's the same as yours. You can't tell him in advance. Xiao Qi nodded lightly. Yes, no problem. She was very confident in Chuli. If there was a problem, he would definitely be able to find out. Her eyes flashed and revealed a trace of smile. What if he finds out? Co. Tying said, If he can really find out, he can do whatever he wants in the future. Let him clean up the spies in the public house. But third younger sister has already combed through it once. There shouldn't be any problem. Xiao Qi gently shook her head. People's hearts are fickle. They might be loyal at one moment, but they might not be loyal the next. That's why the Glory's courtyard is needed. That's true. Co, Tai sighed. He lowered his head and frowned. It was difficult for him to feel depressed. Shao-Chi said, "Big brother, it's useless to think about it now. Just pretend that we never found the longevity grass." Damn Jiangquai. Co, Tai gritted his teeth. We might not be able to find a longevity grass, but it's not impossible to kill Jiangquai, Shao-Chi said. Co Taiying's spirit was lifted. He looked up and said, "Who can kill him?" "Chuli," Shao-Chi said. Co Taiying shook his head and laughed. "Third younger sister, you think too highly of this Chuli. Even a grandmaster can't do anything to him. Can Chuli do it?" Shao-Chi said, "Big brother, do you think I'll lie to you?" Co Taiying was stunned and frowned. Can he really kill Jiangquai? After this, let him try, Shao-Chi said. Don't kill Jiangquai first. Co Taiying quickly waved his hand and said, "I'm not willing to let Jiangquai live for another day. Moreover, what if the longevity grass is still in Jiangquai's hands?" Shao-Chi pondered. Chapter 125. Shao-Chi was a little touched. For the sake of second eldest sister, Big Brother could put aside his own feelings and swallow his anger. Once Chuli caught up with Jiangquai, if he could not show his sincerity and only relied on force, it would only force Jiangquai into a life-and-death struggle. Jiangquai would never hand over the longevity grass. Only by giving him a chance could he possibly get the longevity grass back. This chance was very slim, but he had to fight for it even if there was only a slim chance. It was with this mentality that he found the longevity grass. Second sister, since Chuli could get Jiangquai's heart, why didn't you say so earlier? Co Taiying grumbled. Shao-Chi shook her head. Chuli's light body technique is great, but he's not a deity. He might not be able to do it. As long as there's a sliver of hope, I have to fight for it. Co Taiying said, "All right, send him off right now. He'll be promoted to rank 4. If he can really find a longevity grass, he'll be promoted again." Shao-Chi said, "We need the public house's cooperation. We need to find out where Jiangquai is first. We're already looking for him." Co Taiying said, "We'll have news soon." "I'll go look for Chuli," Shao-Chi said. In her heart, she did not have much hope of recovering the longevity grass. Jiangquai was a sky burglar. He was very knowledgeable. How could he not recognize the longevity grass? Even if he did not value it at first, after knowing the identity of the House of High Dukes, he could guess that it was a valuable item. He would be able to find it out after a careful investigation. If it could increase one's lifespan by 60 years, Jiangquai would probably swallow it straight into his stomach. Co Taiying stared at her in dissatisfaction. "Hurry up and go look for it." "There's no hurry," Chi said. Co Taiying said snappily, "It's possible that Jiangquai would have eaten the longevity grass in the time it took to finish these few sentences." All right, I'll go right away." Chi shook her head. He was currently in a half-crazy state, so it was not appropriate for her to reason with him. Chuli was taking care of the spirit herbs in the courtyard. He had already harvested a batch of them and was now planting new seeds. The power of the Glory's tree had been demonstrated for the first time. The harvesting time was reduced by 2/3 compared to the normal harvest time. A spirit herb that was a year old only needed 4 months. Xueling was practicing the Dark Yin Palm at the side. Not only was the Dark Yin Palm's palm energy strange, but the palm technique was also strange. She needed to understand it well. Practice makes perfect. Knock, knock. Someone knocked on the door of the courtyard. Chuli used the omniscient mirror to take a look and realized that it was Shao-Chi. He waved his hand and gestured for Xueling to open the door himself. He dusted off the spirit soil on his palms and opened the door to the courtyard. He gave a fist salute and greeted, "My lady." Shao-Chi was dressed in a snow-white gown, looking otherworldly. Suru, on the other hand, was dressed in a light green gown, looking elegant and pleasant. "Let's talk inside." Shao-Chi stepped into the courtyard. She looked at the glorious tree and the spirit herbs around it and nodded in satisfaction. The growth rate of the spirit herbs was extremely fast. Although it was only a small piece of spirit soil, it was comparable to a spirit herb garden. Furthermore, the value of this small courtyard was immeasurable as it was able to grow all the spiritual herbs in the living herb garden. Shwek quickly came over to greet him. The four of them entered the gazebo. The green bamboo rustled and swayed. It was quiet and pleasant. Shwek served the tea and left quietly. Xiaoqi put down the white jade teacup and looked at Chu Li coldly. Chu Li, you're now rank 4. Chu Li was stunned for a moment before he smiled and said, Thank you, lady. Going from rank 5 to rank 4 was a huge chasm. He thought that it would take a few years to accumulate merits. Rank 4 was not something that could be achieved with time. It was all about merits. Xiaoqi said, This is what you deserve. There's one more thing. Glory's will courtyard? Chu Li smiled. Master, Xiaoqi doesn't agree? Big brother has agreed. Xiaoqi said lightly, but something happened in the public house. Chu Li looked at her. Xiaoqi said, They found a longevity grass, but it was snatched by the celestial monkey halfway. Longevity grass? Chu Li was stunned and said in surprise, The legendary longevity grass. Yes, there's really longevity grass in this world. Chu Li sighed. I didn't expect it. It said that it can increase one's lifespan by 60 years. It's really a good thing. How did it get snatched? To be able to find the longevity grass, it could be seen that the public house was powerful. It should not have been snatched. No matter how important it was, it must have been escorted by a grandmaster. It should be foolproof. Xiaoqi said lightly, You know the celestial monkey, right? Chu Li pondered for a moment and nodded. He found the information about the celestial monkey in his mind. An innate master with peerless light body technique. Even if he faced a grandmaster, he could escape unscathed. Chu Li believed that this was not a false rumor. His light body technique was superb. He could definitely escape unscathed even if he faced a grandmaster. The celestial monkey took the opportunity when the Ferric Demon Ridge ambushed the public house's protectors and snatched the longevity grass. Xiaoqi said lightly, Now that he's missing, it's possible that he has recognized the longevity grass. Chu Li sighed. Maybe he has eaten it. If he ate it, then kill him. If he didn't, then take it back. If he hands over the longevity grass, we can let bygones be bygones. Xiaoqi said, You can do this. Chu Li was stunned and pointed at himself in surprise. Xiaoqi said, Your light body technique is the best. There's a glimmer of hope to catch up with him. If you can get the longevity grass back, you can advance another rank. Chu Li smiled bitterly. My lady, I'm not that capable. Suru rolled her eyes at him and scoffed. Chu Li, how will you know if you don't try? Chu Li sighed. I guess the public house's protectors have already tried? Big Brother sent 2 batches of people, but there's still no news. It's probably hopeless. Xiaoqi shook her head. If it's so easy to catch the celestial monkey, he would have died countless times. We still have to rely on you. Chu Li picked up the white jade teacup and took a sip. He sighed. Finding the celestial monkey is harder than finding a needle in the sea. The celestial monkey was the world's famous celestial bandit. He had offended countless people, but he was still free and unfettered. No one could do anything to him. This meant that no one knew where he was hiding, and he was proficient in concealment techniques. The world was so big. It was completely wishful thinking to find his hiding place. After snatching the longevity grass, it was obvious that Jiang Kuai must be hiding and would be hiding for a while. Under such circumstances, to find him, unless a miracle happened. Chu Li had the life and death scripture and the omniscient mirror, but he was not a deity. He could not be omnipotent. The public house will send people to help you, Xiaoqi said. Chu Li sighed. My lady, you know, it's useless. The celestial monkey had not only offended their family, he had offended all 12 public houses, especially the Ren public house, who hated him the most and wanted to get rid of him as soon as possible. The Ren public house was powerful, but they could not find him, let alone the Yi public house. Xiaoqi said lightly, So you don't want to go? Chu Li looked at her cold and expressionless face. He sighed again. Since my lady has ordered, of course, I will obey. That's good. Xiao Qi's expression softened. Suru said, then, leading the tailoring sword to control the mo, saying, burning the carbonal, changing to Xiao, sacrificing himself? Chui Tang Si Wu. Xiao Qi asked, is there anything else you need? Who is the longevity grass for? Chu Li asked. Xiao Qi was stunned. She did not expect him to ask this at this time. It's for second eldest sister. Chu Li nodded thoughtfully. It seemed that Master Xiao Taiying really valued relationships. The temptation of 60 years of lifespan was too big. He could actually resist it and wanted to give the longevity grass to Co Sure. It was worth his effort. Su Ru said, do you want me to help you? Chu Li shook his head. The fewer the people, the better. It's not easy to catch up to the celestial monkey. Where do we start? Xiao Qi asked. Chu Li pondered for a moment and looked up. Have the protectors returned? You suspect that there's a spy? Xiao Qi immediately understood what he meant. Chapter 126. Spies. Xiao Qi furrowed her brows. They're all trusted subordinates who have been tested. Otherwise, Big Brother would not have sent them. My lady, you should know that people are fickle. Chu Li shrugged. Xiao Qi sighed. I really hope that your speculation is wrong. Let's give it a try then. Chu Li smiled. They're back, right? He came back yesterday. Young master, shouldn't you reward me? Let's go join in the fun. All right. Xiao Qi nodded slowly and sighed. If you don't have any clues, you won't be able to find Jiang Kuai. Chu Li smiled bitterly and said, my lady, that will be troublesome. We have to investigate bit by bit. It all depends on second lady's luck. Xiao Qi sighed softly. Second eldest sister is really unfortunate. It's not impossible. Lady, don't be discouraged. Chu Li comforted her. He also felt that the second Mrs. Fate was not good. She was born in a rich and powerful family with unparalleled beauty. It could be said that she was the most beautiful woman in the world. However, she didn't have a good body and couldn't enjoy the benefits of wealth. It was more painful than reincarnating into an ordinary family. It was not easy for him to find the longevity grass, and there was hope for him to recover. However, an accident happened halfway, and it was snatched away. No matter how he looked at it, it was bad luck. However, he knew that the longevity grass alone could not cure second Mississippi. If she was really congenitally deficient, she could recover immediately after taking the longevity grass. Unfortunately, she was hit by the vitality sealing finger. No matter how magical the longevity grass was, without unlocking the vitality sealing finger, her body was still weak. However, regardless of whether it was useful to the second miss or not, the longevity grass was a legendary spiritual herb that could increase one's lifespan by 60 years. Its value was immeasurable. Since it was snatched away, of course, it had to be taken back. Even if the second miss couldn't heal her body because of the vitality sealing finger, the medicinal effect was still there. As long as the vitality sealing finger was undone, she could still increase her lifespan by 60 years. Xiao Qi said, get ready. I'll bring you along tonight. I've combed through the residence once, and it's inevitable that no one will slip through the net. If you have time in the future, you can comb through the residence again. Yes, Chu Li replied. Xiao Qi got up and left with Suru following closely behind her. Bam! Co Taiying smashed the teacup on the floor, shattering it into pieces. With an ashen face, he said coldly, You're all trash. Trash. The middle-aged man lowered his head and did not speak. His face was flushed. Ling Quan, who was standing in the corner, also kept his mouth shut. Eldest young master was an impulsive person, and it was not appropriate for him to speak when he was in a rage. He would not listen to anything. After walking back and forth for more than 10 times, Co Taiying sat down on the armchair. He panted heavily and scoffed. 2 grandmasters and 20 innate masters couldn't even surround one Jiang Kuai. If he were to come and assassinate us, are we supposed to just watch and do nothing? The middle-aged man whispered, Young master, this guy's lightness skill is too good, but his martial arts are not that strong. He won't be able to assassinate young master. Shut up, Co Tying said coldly. If you can't assassinate me, what about my sister? The middle-aged man immediately shut his mouth. The second lady did not know any martial arts and had a weak and sickly body. Once Jiang Kuai got close to her, she would definitely die. I'm not asking you to catch him or kill him. I just want you to follow him. What about you? Huh? Co Tying said in a low voice. There are so many of us, but we can't even follow him. What should we do now? Where can I find him? The middle-aged man sighed. It was really troublesome now. Jiang Kuai was as cunning as a fox. It would be difficult to find him again. They had to find a place to hide for a year and a half. They would be exhausted from running for their lives. They would not be able to live a good life. He said dejectedly, Young master, we were greedy. You've ruined everything. Co Ting said coldly. This time, there's no hope for my sister anymore. What did I say? As long as we follow him, I'll send people to deal with him. What about them? Huh? What have you done? His eyes were cold and his chest was burning with anger. He wished he could give him a slap and beat these incompetent and spoilt them half to death in one breath. His remaining rationality held him back. He was extremely disappointed and snorted coldly. Don't think that I don't know what you're thinking. They were afraid that others would really catch Jiang Kuai, which would make them look incompetent. So they wanted to be the first to catch Jiang Kuai and take back the longevity grass to atone for their mistakes. In the end, they failed. The middle-aged man lowered his head and did not say a word. Forget it. It's useless to say more. Co Tying waved his hand and took a deep breath to suppress his anger. He snorted, Come here tonight. I'll treat everyone to a drink. No matter what. Everyone has worked hard. Young master. The middle-aged man looked up and said shamefully, We really don't have the face to drink. Young? Chui. Bai Ke. Jia Bai? Kol Ming Chao Chuan. Let's laugh. Yes. The middle-aged man nodded helplessly. Get lost. Co Tying waved his hand. The middle-aged man was relieved. He quickly closed fists, saluted, turned around, and left in a hurry. Co Tying stared coldly at his back and did not say a word. The white-haired Lin Quan said in a low voice, Young master, they lost their minds and did such a stupid thing. I can't believe that even two grandmasters can't defeat Jiang Kuai. If Jiang Kuai was so easy to kill, he would have been killed by the Ren public house. Co Tying sneered. They sent 4 grandmasters, but they couldn't do anything to him. They want to succeed with just 2 people. How stupid. Young master, there's no need to be angry with these people. You'll hurt your health. The elder shook his head and said, Now it's up to the third lady. Initially, they followed him and knew his whereabouts. Chu Li still had a glimmer of hope. Now that he's missing, where'll he find him? Co Tying scoffed. Looking for a needle in a haystack, it's futile. Chu Li is a very powerful young man. He might be able to make the impossible possible. The elder smiled and said, If a normal person suffered such a serious injury, even if they don't die, they'll be crippled. How long has it been for him to recover? Fortunately, I didn't tell third younger sister that I've been sending people to follow Jiang Kuai. Co Tying shook his head and said, Or else, I don't know how she would mock and ridicule us. He originally wanted to surprise third younger sister and gain her admiration. Third younger sister was too arrogant. She did not admire him as her big brother, which made him feel very unfulfilled. Lin Quan smiled and said, Now that the third lady dared to agree, she must have some confidence. It's up to Chu Li now. I hope he succeeds. If he really manages to get the longevity grass back, I'll reward him handsomely. Co Tying said. Lin Quan smiled and nodded. If he really manages to find it, then he'll really be a genius. Chu Li sat quietly at a table. Shui followed behind him to refill his wine at any time. There were a total of 7 tables in the hall. 1 table was for Co Tying and Co Chi. The other table was for Chu Li and 3 grandmasters. The remaining 5 tables were for 20 innate masters. Chu Li's existence was very eye-catching. They did not understand. Since Chu Li was young and not a grandmaster, What qualifications did he have to sit at the same table with 3 grandmasters? However, there must be a reason for Master Co Taiying's arrangement. They did not dare to ask further, as they were criminals. Co Taiying quickly introduced everyone. There's a new Gloriesville courtyard in the public house. Chu Li is the chief of the Gloriesville courtyard. He's responsible for eliminating traitors in the public house. He's a rank 4 scribe. Everyone's face turned solemn. A rank 4 scribe was indeed qualified to sit in that position. Moreover, he was responsible for eliminating traitors. That was a high position and power. Chu Li gave a fist salute to everyone. Then, he picked up his wine glass and finished it in one gulp. He sat down without saying a word. Shui stepped forward and filled the empty glass with a pot. Everyone bowed and finished it. From the beginning to the end, Chu Li's face was sullen. He did not say a word. Everyone had heard of Chu Li's name. He was famous, and they did not dare to be careless. When the banquet ended and only Chu Li, Co Chi, and Co Taiying were left, Chu Li spoke. Master Co Taiying, Lady Co, there's indeed a spy. Chu Li's expression was solemn. Who? Co Taiying hurriedly asked. Chu Li looked at Co Chi and sighed. Senior Huang. Huang Chi? Co Taiying asked loudly. Chapter 127. Chu Li nodded slowly. He knew that Shao Qi could not tell. When one reached the Grandmaster's boundary, there was a faint trace of spiritual power that would interfere with outsiders peeping into one's heart. Shao Qi's cultivation level was still weak. If she reached the Grandmaster's boundary, she could see through the heart of a Grandmaster. Now that she was in the innate mastery's boundary, she could not see through it. It can't be. Co Taiying frowned. Shao Qi was also hesitant. She did not feel anything strange. It was difficult to peep into the heart of Grandmaster, but she knew that Chu Li would not speak without thinking. He was a Grandmaster, the pillar of the public house. If there was no problem, he would be wrongly accused, and Chu Li's future in the public house would be over. There were only a few Grandmasters in the world. They were the top existence. The public house did not dare to investigate Grandmasters. Once they offended them, they would leave immediately. The public house's restriction on them was very weak. Chu Li said Jiang Kuai was not recruited by him, but the people from the Ferric Demon Ridge were done by him. Why? Co Taiying was puzzled. The Ferric Demon Ridge is not a threat at all. Chu Li shook his head and sighed. He wanted to swallow this longevity grass. What? Co Taiying snorted. Chu Li looked at Co Taiying. Master Co, Huang Qi knew that it was the longevity grass that was being escorted, right? You should not know. Co Taiying shook his head. I did not tell anyone. Chu Li said he knew. Co Taiying's face turned pale and said coldly, he must have secretly opened the box. Lawless. The protector's rule was not to open the escorted item. It was usually sealed. Once it was opened, it could be seen. Breaking the rule would be punished. However, Huang Qi opened the box. Obviously, he did not take the owner of the public house seriously. He knew that he could not do anything to him. 60 years of life. Chu Li shook his head and sighed. For these old people, the temptation is too great. It's understandable. Co Taiying believed him this time. Huang Qi was a Grandmaster. He was already more than 150 years old. The older he was, the more he cherished his life. How could he not be tempted when he saw the longevity grass? Moreover, he was able to use the Ferric Demon Ridge to swallow the longevity grass flawlessly. Even if someone suspected him, they would not dare to say anything because he was a Grandmaster. Even if he lost the longevity grass and Huang Qi was at fault, there was no major loss. He could just say that he did not know how precious the item he was escorting was and that it was just a small mistake. Such a price in exchange for 60 years of lifespan. If it were him, he would also do it. Shao Qi frowned. Jiang Kuai stole the longevity grass, and he was surprised too. It should be. Chu Li smiled. This is just my speculation. Whether it's true or not, I'll need you to verify it yourself, Master. I will look for him and ask him in detail. Co Taiying said slowly. Shao Qi said, Big brother, I'll watch from the side too. Co, Tying nodded his head. Even if she had not mentioned it, he would have invited her to be by his side. He wanted to borrow her ability to see through people's minds. He felt that the reason why she could not see through it earlier was because she did not suspect Huang Qi. If she had the intention, she would have seen through it. Chuli closed fist saluted. Master Co, Lady Co, I'll take my leave first. Since there is no news here, I'll go to the scene of the incident to take a look. Sigh. Co Tying shook his head and sighed. He told them what happened earlier. Xiao Qi frowned slightly and looked at him with dissatisfaction. Co Tying smiled bitterly. Third younger sister, I didn't expect this group of people to be so reckless. Chuli said, this is not reckless. Master Co should understand if you think about it. Co Tying was stunned. He immediately thought of Huang Qi and his face darkened. He scoffed. No wonder, it's because of his greed. I'll talk to Huang Qi tonight. Chuli picked up the teacup and took a sip. He slowly put it down. If it's true, how will Master Co deal with him? Co Tying frowned and thought for a while. He scoffed. Cripple his martial arts. After all, he also has meritorious deeds. We can't punish him too harshly. Yes, cripple his martial arts and let him live in the public house, Xiao Qi said. Chuli nodded thoughtfully. Xiao Qi said, Chuli, what do you think? Chuli smiled. Grandmasters have a high status. It'll be troublesome to deal with them. That's true. Co Tying sighed. He now had some understanding of Chuli. He was indeed a smart guy, and his words were pleasing to the ear. He was not like those arrogant people. He was worth training. No wonder third younger sister spent so much effort to train him. A bright moon hung in the sky. The moonlight was like water. Chu Li and Xue Ling returned to the courtyard. As soon as they entered, Xue Ling asked, Master, when are we leaving? Chu Li paced in the courtyard with his hands behind his back. Xue Ling followed closely. Is it okay to delay this much? There's no rush. Chu Li answered absent-mindedly. The celestial monkey was difficult to deal with. It was not easy to find him. Even if he chased him to the scene of the incident and found his traces, he would not be able to find him. His light body technique was superb, and he would not leave behind too many traces. The only good news was that the incident happened on the Thunder State Road. This road was under the influence of the public house. On the Thunder State Road, the public house's influence was everywhere. The celestial monkey should not be able to hide his tracks. As long as he could find him, things would be much easier. At this time, he realized that martial arts and power had their own advantages. No matter how strong one's martial arts was, power was still stronger. However, sometimes martial arts was more important. Master, Xue Ling stopped and stomped her feet. Chu Li turned to look at her. Xue Ling scoffed. I'm talking. All right. Chu Li waved his hand. This matter still needs to wait for news. Xue Ling said, What about the Gloriesville courtyard? When are we going to find the traitor? She felt that the Gloriesville courtyard was very prestigious. Offending people. Chu Li sighed. This is not a good job. In the future, when they hear the name Gloriesville courtyard, they will feel uncomfortable. Just like the embroidered uniform guards of the East Depot and West Depot in that era, it was not a good reputation. The Gloriesville courtyard would probably end up like this in the future. That was why he was not very active and decided to rule by doing nothing. It's good that they feel uncomfortable, Xue Ling said. Chu Li looked at her. Look further. If you offend too many people, it will be difficult for you in the future. It's good that Lady Xiao supports us, Xue Ling said. Who cares about them? You? Chu Li shook his head and laughed. Xue Ling pouted her red lips. Anyway, I don't think we need to care so much. Everyone hates the traitor. If we find out who the traitor is, everyone will be happy. Let's talk about it later. Chu Li nodded. It was not that easy to find a traitor. Just like the incident with Huang Qi, the impact was huge and the consequences were serious. The Gloriesville courtyard had a heavy responsibility. If something happened to the traitor in the future, the Gloriesville courtyard would be the first to be blamed. Xue Ling saw that he was absent-minded and did not want to talk to her. She pouted helplessly. I'm gonna make some tea. Chu Li sat back in a pagoda and drank his tea. He was still thinking about how to find Jiang Kuai and what breakthrough he could make. Time passed unknowingly, and the night gradually darkened. The courtyard door was suddenly pushed open. Suru came in wearing a light green gown. Chuli stood up. Suru floated into the pagoda with a light fragrance. Sit down and talk. There's a result. Chuli saw her serious face and asked directly, how was it? Suru took the teacup from Xueling. You're right. Chuli sighed. Suru said, we had a fight and it was a mess. Finally, we subdued him and crippled his martial arts. There was no joy on Chuli's face. Every grandmaster was important to the House of High Dukes. Crippling one of them was tantamount to weakening their strength. It was not a good thing. Chapter 128. I hope that Master Xiao Taiying will accept this, Chuli said. It was inevitable to be sad and disappointed. After all, they were grandmasters with high status. They had never suspected them, but they did not expect something to go wrong. More importantly, without a grandmaster, the High Duke's public house's strength was immediately weakened. Suru's face darkened, and she did not say a word. Chuli looked at her and frowned. Chief, did something happen? No. Suru shook her head and did not look at him. Chuli thought quickly. He was not in a hurry to activate the omniscient mirror. He frowned and said, Huang Qi made a move. I think Lady Xiao Taiying and Master Xiao Taiying are involved. Is Lady Xiao Taiying injured? Sura looked down and drank her tea. She did not say a word. Chu Li raised his eyebrows. Is she really injured? Is it serious? Grandmasters are not innate masters. I'll go take a look. What's the use? Suru waved her hand and said in a low voice, Lady Xiao Taiying is healing herself. Not seriously injured? She almost died. Chuli was confused. Lady Xiao Taiying is close to the Grandmaster's boundary. She can't be so seriously injured, right? The martial arts that Xiao Qi cultivated were extremely mysterious. Now, she already had a hint of a Grandmaster shadow. If she were to encounter a Grandmaster, she would still be able to fight back. Huang Qi's cultivation level was not considered profound, so it was reasonable to say that his injuries would not be too serious. Suru scoffed. Lady Xiao Taiying did it to save Master Xiao Taiying. Huang Qi dared to attack Master Xiao Taiying. He's crazy. He knew that he would not have a good ending if he was exposed. He wanted to kill Master Xiao Taiying. Suru said coldly. These grandmasters had a high status in the public house. They were treated well, but they were greedy. They wanted to steal things from the public house. Once they were exposed, they wanted to kill. They were really ungrateful people. Chuli said, Lady Xiao Taiying took a blow from Master Xiao Taiying. Yes, Huang Qi was talking nicely when he suddenly attacked. Suru shook her head. Lady Xiao Taiying was not prepared. She used her body technique to block Master Xiao Taiying and took Huang Qi's punch. Where's the injury? Chuli asked. Lady Xiao took a punch from him. Suru sighed and said she didn't have time to circulate her power and her left arm broke. She shook her head and her face darkened. Chuli stood up and walked outside. Bring me there. What are you going to do there? Lady Xiao is meditating to heal herself. She won't see anyone. Suru waved her hand and scoffed. Chuli did not stop walking. I have some experience in healing. I can help Lady Xiao. What do you have in mind? Suru got up and followed behind him. Chuli smiled and said, I was heavily injured last time, but didn't I recover very quickly? Is there a way? Suru looked at him doubtfully. She had heard about Chuli's previous attempt to save the second lady. He had almost lost his life, but he had indeed recovered very quickly. The two of them had already walked out of the courtyard and into the forest. Chuli said, I've cultivated a heart technique that specializes in healing injuries, and it's quite effective. Lady Xiao also has a special healing heart technique, Suru said. Chuli replied snappily, Chief, would I harm the lady? That's true. Suru pursed her lips and smiled. She nodded. All right, you are loyal. I don't know if Miss will see you. She said not to be disturbed. Chuli said, let's go. The night was dark, but the entire Jade Guardian Island was brightly lit as if it was daytime. Under the light, the pavilions and pavilions were richly ornamented. It was like a heavenly palace. The two of them stopped at the second floor of the stargazing tower. Suru signaled for him to stop and wait for her to go up first. She then quietly went up to the third floor. Chuli had already activated the omniscient mirror. On a couch on the third floor, Co Chi was sitting cross-legged with her face as pale as a sheet. She was quietly channeling her inner energy. Her left arm was clamped with a board and wrapped with a white cloth. Chuli took a closer look. Her left arm was broken into pieces, and her meridians were destroyed. The other meridians were also dispirited and lifeless. Huang Chi's inner energy was extremely vicious. When Suru walked up, he followed her up to the third floor and waved his hand at her. Suru widened her eyes and stared at him. Chuli sat behind Co Chi and placed both his palms on her soft back. The scripture of life and death gathered the spiritual energy of the plants and slowly infused it into her body, nourishing her meridians. Suru was indignant, but she could only watch and did not dare to disturb him. After about the time it took to drink a cup of tea, Co Chi slowly opened her eyes. Chuli did not let go of his palms. He was still nourishing her body with spiritual energy. "Lady Co, come to my side." Co Chi's face was a little rosier. She felt that the inner energy from Chu Li's palms was pure and full of vitality. The recovery of her meridians was far better than her own heart-healing technique. Her injuries had stopped worsening. Co Chi's voice was slightly hoarse. "Go to your side. Beside the glorious tree, it can help to heal," Chuli said. "Okay," Co Chi said. Chuli withdrew his palms, and Co Chi slowly got off the couch. Suru rolled her eyes at Chu Li and quickly asked, "Lady Co, are your injuries better?" "Yes, it's okay," Co Chi said. Chu Li shook his head. Co Chi looked at Chu Li. "Let's go." The three of them went downstairs and directly went to Chu Li's courtyard. As soon as they stepped into the courtyard, Co Chi felt a refreshing breeze blowing on her face. Her whole body relaxed a little. Before this, when she was not injured, she did not have such sensitive senses. Now that she was ill, her senses were even more acute. Chuli said, "Xueling, take out 2 cattail hassocks." "Yes." Xueling responded and went into the living room to take out 2 cattail hassocks. She followed the direction of Chu Li's finger and placed them next to the glorious tree. Co Chi sat on one of the hassocks, and Chu Li sat behind her. Suru and Xueling stood at the side and watched quietly. Chu Li closed his eyes and transferred the spiritual energy of the glories tree into Co Chi's body. At the same time, he circulated the minute pulse cleansing technique in her body. Co Chi let it be. She did not help or stop him. She just watched the inner energy flow and unknowingly fell into a state of oblivion. When she suddenly woke up, she realized that the sky was already bright. The sun in the middle of the sky warmed her body and the original cold disappeared. Spiritual energy continuously flowed into her back. She silently observed for a moment. Her meridians were full and strong. Most of her injuries were healed. Her left arm was still faintly aching. After all, the broken bones would not heal so quickly. It would take some time to recuperate. However, her meridians were unobstructed. If her meridians recovered, her bones would recover quickly too. Chuli slowly withdrew his palms. Suru and Xueling, who were sitting at the side, got busy. Xueling brought the porridge over while Suru poured out a pill from the porcelain bottle and passed it to Chuli. Both of them had not eaten for the whole night and the whole morning. They must be hungry. Moreover, Chuli had been cultivating for a long time. He must be exhausted. Suru gave Chuli an energy enhancement pill to replenish his energy and also to calm his mind. Co Chi stood up and looked down at Chuli. Chuli had already taken the energy enhancement pill. He closed his eyes and adjusted his breath. Suru quickly asked, "Lady Co, how is it?" Co Chi nodded. "More than half recovered. Let's go. Don't disturb Chuli. Let him come at night." "Yes," Suru quickly said. Xueling said, "Lady Co, have a bowl of porridge. We need to make it when we get back." All right. Xiao Qi came to the pagoda. Xueling put down the 2 bowls of porridge and looked at Chu Li worriedly. Xiao Qi said, "Don't worry. He's just tired. He'll be fine after a day of rest." Xueling nodded lightly. Xiao Qi drank the porridge and looked at Chu Li. Chapter 129. As long as he was given enough opportunities, the chances of him stepping into the Grandmaster's boundary were very high. Unfortunately, there were too few opportunities. If he was in a top-notch martial arts sect, he might have already stepped into the Grandmaster's boundary. Speaking of which, the High Duke's public house owed him. She shook her head and sighed. She didn't eat quickly. She ate the porridge in small mouthfuls as she pondered. When he finished the bowl of porridge and put it down, Chu Li stood up and walked over. "Master!" Xueling looked at him carefully. "It's fine." Chu Li waved his hand and sat opposite Xiao Qi. "My lady, is Huang Qi's cultivation level that high? He knows that he's in a hopeless situation. He's like a cornered beast." Xiao Qi's expression was calm as she shook her head gently. "I've underestimated his courage." Now that she thought about it, she was too careless. She should not have allowed the Grandmasters to hide outside the house. She thought that Huang Qi would not dare to attack them and would at most escape. She did not expect him to have the intention to kill them. Chu Li asked, "You still kept him alive?" "No matter what, he has made a great contribution," Xiao Qi said plainly. "Killing him would be too disappointing." "Young master, are you all right?" "Big brother is not injured." "Lady, you need to recuperate. You can't fight." Chu Li frowned. "I'll perform the 9 transformation meridian reforming technique." Xiao Qi furrowed her brows as she looked at him. Chu Li shook his head and said, "Huang Qi's inner energy is insidious and poisonous. It's best not to leave behind any future problems that could affect his advancement to the Grandmaster's boundary in the future." "I think it's almost done," Xiao Qi said. She felt that her meridians were almost healed. Chu Li said, "Huang Qi's inner energy can hurt people invisibly. Now that he seems to have recovered, there's still hidden dangers." Xiao Qi could only vaguely feel the condition of her meridians. She was only relying on her intuition, but Chu Li could see it clearly. There were still traces in the fine areas. If this continued, her meridians would be damaged. After a few repetitions, it would become a chronic disease that was not easy to cure. Chu Li, the 9 transformation meridian reforming technique is very dangerous. Suru stood behind Xiao Qi and said impatiently, "If there's an accident," Chu Li smiled. "I've already performed the 9 transformation meridian reforming technique 50 times. There's still no danger." Suru was stunned for a moment, then came to a realization. "You gave it to Chen Ying and the others?" "Yes. They all want to practice martial arts, but they haven't reached the foundation building stage yet. He's already so old, and he's building his foundation now." Suru paused at this point. Chu Li was an example. He built his foundation very late, but he was well prepared and managed to enter the innate mastery's boundary before others. Chu Li said, "They've cultivated the sun, cultivating White Tiger Portrait. I'm not sure if they'll be successful." 9 transformation meridian reforming technique. Xiao Qi pondered and slowly nodded. "All right, I'll use it when you come back." "Let's do it today." Chu Li shook his head. "Your injury can't be delayed." Xiao Qi frowned. Jiang Kuai's side was the most important. If they were a little late, they might swallow the longevity grass. If they were a little early, they might have a chance to snatch it back. This was related to Second Sister's life. Chu Li replied, "I'll be done soon." He was not in a hurry. If there was no news from the manor, it would be impossible for him to find a needle in a haystack. "Can your spirit handle it?" "No problem." "All right," Xiao Qi said. "Let's fight for time. We need to hurry up with Jiang Kuai's side. Suru, go to Big Brother's side and urge him." "Yes, lady." Suru agreed and turned to leave. She was in a hurry to come back and watch Chu Li use the 9 transformation meridian reforming technique in case of any accidents. The 9 transformation meridian reforming technique was very dangerous. Chu Li reached out and said, "Let's go to the study." Xiao Qi got up and the 3 of them went to Chu Li's study. Xueling had already brought 3 boxes of needles. She opened them and placed them beside Chu Li's hand. Xiao Qi sat on the armchair. "Do I need to take off my clothes?" "Just take off your outer clothes." Chu Li picked up the wooden needles. Xiao Qi gracefully took off her snow-white gown. She was only wearing a snow-white undergarment. Suddenly, she looked less cold and more lively. Chu Li looked at the indescribably beautiful Xiao Qi and sighed. She still did not see herself as a man. Chu Li said, "Relax, don't circulate your energy." Xiao Qi closed her bright eyes. Chu Li inserted the needles very quickly. He inserted 109 needles in one breath. He was very familiar with it. Xiao Qi had just taken a few breaths when she felt the pores on her body suddenly open up. An invisible force rushed in. It was as if she was in a lake. This invisible force drilled into her pores like the lake water and rushed into her meridians, strengthening her meridians. When Su Ru floated back and quietly approached Xiao Qi, she saw that there were needles all over Xiao Qi's body. 109 needles were like the waves of wheat being blown by the wind. They moved up and down in an orderly manner. Chu Li said, "Xueling, bring a bowl of porridge over. I'm hungry." Xueling quickly agreed and slowly walked out of the study. Su Ru stared at Xiao Qi. "Chu Li, will there be any accidents?" "Don't worry," Chu Li said. Su Ru rolled her eyes at him. "How dare you?" This kind of secret skill was dangerous. Lady Xiao was a precious person. How could she take such a risk? If it was not Lady Xiao's decision, she would never agree to it. Xueling brought 3 bowls of white rice porridge. It was fragrant. Chu Li drank 1 bowl in a few mouthfuls and finished 3 bowls in one go. He nodded in satisfaction. Xueling took the bowls and carried them out. Only the 3 of them were left in the study. Chu Li said, "What did Master Xiao Taiying say?" "No news yet." Su Ru sighed. Chu Li frowned. "Looks like we can't count on him. Do you have a way to find him?" Su Ru looked at Chu Li. This matter was too difficult. Even Lady Xiao could not do anything about it. The public house was powerful, but they could not do anything to a small celestial monkey. No one would believe it. This was the power of martial arts. Many times it could surpass power. Chu Li said, "I can only try." He could not think of any good ideas now. The only thing he could rely on was the omniscient mirror. If it did not work, he would offer a reward. With a reward, there would be a brave man. He would be able to find some clues. As long as there was a clue, Jiang Kuai would not be able to escape from his palm. Time passed quietly. When it was evening, Chu Li suddenly pulled out the needles. Xiao Qi slowly opened her eyes. Her eyes were bright and full of energy as if she was not injured. Chu Li smiled. "Congratulations, Lady Xiao." Xiao Qi nodded. "This time it's all thanks to you." Not only did her meridian injuries heal, but her cultivation level had also improved. Her accumulation was getting deeper. It would be easier for her to break through to the Grandmaster's boundary. It was really a blessing in disguise. Chu Li smiled. "Lady Xiao, you have to be careful of the injury on your left arm. I have the bone healing cream. It will be fine after some rest," Xiao Qi said. As the two were talking, there was a sudden knock on the door. Chu Li's expression changed slightly. He activated the omniscient mirror and saw a young scribe standing outside. This was his residence. It was extremely hidden. Usually, there were only 2 guests, Xiao Qi and Su Ru. No outsiders had ever come here. "I'll go take a look," Su Ru said hurriedly. Xiao Qi frowned. "Go quickly. The Gloriesville courtyard had the Gloriesville tree. Once the Gloriesville tree was exposed, it would be really troublesome." Su Ru walked out lightly and quickly turned back. "Lady Xiao, there's news about the celestial monkey." Chu Li's spirit was lifted. Su Ru did not keep him guessing. "I saw him in Minzhou next to Thunderzhou." "Minzhou?" Chu Li pondered and shook his head. "Chu Li, follow me," Xiao Qi said. The 3 of them quickly left the courtyard and went straight to the 3rd floor of the stargazing tower. Su Ru took out a map, and Chu Li saw the location of Minzhou. Xiao Qi said, "It's more than 1,000 miles away. You have to hurry and leave today. Su Ru, give Chu Li 2 bottles of energy enhancement pills." "Yes." Suru agreed and took 2 bottles of pills from the cabinet for Chuli. Use your light body technique to go there directly, Xiao-Qi said. Chapter 130. He was lucky to be able to find Jiang Kuai's trail. He could not let go of this clue. He wished he could grow a pair of wings and fly there. 1,000 miles was not far in his eyes. Don't you need to go back and prepare? Suru said, bring some clothes. Chu Li shook his head. I can't care about this. This is a rare opportunity. I'll leave immediately. I think I can get there in 1 night. All right. Xiao-Qi gently nodded. Be careful of Jiang Kuai. Not only is his light body technique excellent, but his martial arts is also very powerful. I heard that he has a profound fist technique. Don't think that only his light body technique is good and neglect his fist technique. Chuli smiled. Of course. Goodbye. Xiao-Qi gently waved her hand. Go. Chuli, wait for a moment. I'll get something for you. Suru quickly said and quickly left. She returned with a bag and handed it to Chuli. There's some food inside. You've been traveling for the whole night. You need to eat something to fill your stomach. Chuli smiled and took it, then disappeared in a flash. He performed imminent skyline to his heart's content. The spiritual force around him was like a raging wave. After it entered his body, it directly turned into inner energy, supporting the continuous performance of imminent skyline. At dawn, he arrived at Min's state. Following the unique sign of the public house, he found a house. It was a wealthy family with a tall gate and a courtyard. The house had 4 levels and a back garden. It was magnificent. He directly went into the front house and appeared in front of the woodshed. This woodshed had the unique sign of the public house. He knocked on the door and a thunderous voice came from inside. Who is it? Chuli said. Chuli. The woodshed was opened. Inside was a burly man like an iron tower. He was more than 30 years old. His face was dark, his eyes were bright, and he was full of energy. He seemed to know martial arts, but had not reached the innate mastery's boundary. Chuli handed over a white jade waist tag. The public house's rank 4 scribe, Chuli. The rank 4 scribe's waist tag was made of white jade. It was warm and translucent. It was the best jade to show the public house's wealth. This piece of jade could easily be sold for 10,000 taels of silver. Please come in. The strong man looked at the jade tag carefully and passed his ebony waist tag to Chuli. You can just call me Elder Imo. Chuli glanced at the ebony waist tag and stepped into the woodshed. Before he sat down, he said directly, Brother Imo, let's skip the pleasantries. This is an emergency. Where is Jiang Kuai? Can't find it. Imota rubbed his head and smiled awkwardly. Chuli raised his eyebrows. Imota sighed. I haven't seen Jiang Kuai with my own eyes. One of my informants saw Jiang Kuai in a restaurant, but he immediately lost track of him. Chuli frowned and pondered. Imota said, maybe Jiang Kuai is no longer in Min's state. This guy is very vigilant. Once he finds out that someone is following him, he will immediately escape and disappear. Chuli nodded. That was indeed Jiang Kuai's style of doing things. Once something went wrong, he would run. Of the 36 stratagems, fleeing was the best strategy. I've also asked around. No one has seen Jiang Kuai again, so I suspect that he has already left. Chuli sighed. What a troublesome fellow. He's so slippery. I've sent out all the informants in the city, but no one has seen him. He must have left. Imota said apologetically. This is all my fault. I should have made it clear. If you see him, pretend you don't know and don't follow him. Even if I don't follow him, he won't stay for long. Chuli waved his hand. He won't stay in one place for too long. Imota nodded hurriedly. I'm really sorry for troubling you to make this trip. Chuli said, it's not that there's nothing to gain, but I have to trouble Brother Imo with one more thing. Please say it. Imota said hurriedly. He was a little guilty. He did not do it properly. He was afraid that the public house would blame him for not doing a good job. He hesitated for a moment, and the people from the public house arrived. Chuli said, can you hang a piece of white cloth at the highest point of the city and write that Jiang Kuai is a son of a B***tch? Ta's eyes widened. Chu smiled. Since he won't show his face, I'll scold him and see if he's really in the city. This, Ta smiled bitterly. Doing this, not being open and above board? Chu smiled. He stole our things. It's not a big deal to scold him a little, right? It's not a big deal to scold him a little in private, of course. Ta smiled bitterly. But isn't it a little too much to hang it at such a high place? To force him out, Chu spread his hands and said, I can only use this method, but his light body technique is superb. Even if he really shows up, there's nothing we can do, right? Ta said. Chu said, as long as he shows up, leave the rest to me. It seems that Brother Chu's light body technique is brilliant enough. Ta smiled. It was no wonder. Since the public house sent him here, he must be someone with outstanding light body technique. Otherwise, he would not have come. Moreover, he arrived here so quickly. His light body technique was indeed impressive. I'll leave it to you, Brother Mo. Chu waved his hand. Jiang Kuai's light body technique is superb. He's very arrogant. Even if he knows it's a trap, he'll still show up. Ta scoffed. And scrupulous. He'll definitely tear this piece of white cloth. Chu smiled. Jiang Kuai did not have any great evil. He just liked to rob things, claiming to rob from the rich to help the poor. His behavior had offended many people, but he could still live freely. First, his light body technique was superb. Second, he was careful and might not be fooled. But this time he went too far. The longevity grass was a life-saving item. He snatched it, which was equivalent to ending the life of the lady. It was tantamount to murder. Brother Chu, rest here for a while. I'll send someone to do it right away. Ta said. Chu nodded slightly and closed fist saluted. Thank you. Ta waved his hand. This is my duty. You're welcome. He was a swift and decisive person. He closed fist saluted, turned around, and went out, closing the wooden door. Chu sat on the bed and adjusted his breathing. Performing imminent skyline for a night, his inner energy was endless. It was a huge burden on his body. Fortunately, the sentient menace had reached the 4th level, so he could withstand it. At noon, Ta returned and brought some food and wine for Chu. The two drank and ate while chatting. Ta said what he did. He bribed the biggest restaurant in the city and replaced the signboard with a white cloth that scolded Jiang Kuai. It fluttered in the wind, and the whole Min State town could see it. Ta laughed. As long as Jiang Kuai was still there, unless he was willing to be a coward, he would not make a move. With the peerless light body technique and his arrogance, could Jiang Kuai endure this? If he really could endure this, then Ta am willing to be at a disadvantage and accept it wholeheartedly. Chu listened to Ta's laughter and shook his head. Brother Chu, let's guard the restaurant tonight and see if he shows up. No need, I'll do it. You alone? Ta frowned. More people means more power. Chu shook his head. It's useless even if there are more people. All right. Ta saw that Chu was full of confidence. He wanted to watch a good show and see what kind of amazing light body technique this rank 4 scribe sent by the public house had. He envied Chu from the bottom of his heart. There was also a hint of jealousy. He had good martial arts, but he could only stay in a remote place like Min State. Compared to Chu, the difference was like heaven and earth. He wanted to see what Chu was capable of. If he messed things up, the public house would know that it was not because he was incompetent, but because Jiang Kuai was too powerful. Chapter 131. After eating and drinking, Chu looked at the sky outside and got up to leave. Ta offered to help, but Chu declined politely. The sun was setting, and the twilight was hazy. The sunset dyed the sky red, and the entire Min State city was also dyed a rose color. Heaven and earth were magnificent. Chu quietly left the mansion, strolled, and felt the atmosphere of Min State City. Unknowingly, he came to the restaurant that Ta mentioned, the Sunrise Restaurant. This was the largest restaurant in Min State City, about 20 meters high. Standing on the roof, one could overlook the entire Min State City. Standing downstairs and looking up, a long white cloth fluttered in the air. On it, the word Celestial Monkey Jiang Kuai is a son of a B*TCH were written in crimson cinnabar. However, under the afterglow of the sunset, it was not so conspicuous. Chu Li smiled, walked into the goddess welcoming restaurant, and sat on a seat on the third floor. It was still early, and there were not many people eating. There were 7 or 8 tables on the third floor, and they were whispering about this matter. Sitting on the third floor, one could see the white cloth through the open window. It was impossible not to see it. Who is so free to do such a wicked thing? Must have nothing better to do. Celestial Monkey, I've heard of his name. It is said that his light body technique is superb. Just from this name, I know his light body technique is good. What does he look like? From this name, he has a protruding mouth and monkey cheeks. How many people have actually seen Celestial Monkey? This guy is said to be elusive. If he sees this, won't he explode in anger? I don't know which wicked person did this. It's too bad. It must be Celestial Monkey's enemy. If he's capable, then find him for revenge. Why use such a trick? Celestial Monkey's light body technique is good. He wants revenge, but can't find him, so he can only resort to this. According to what you said, it's reasonable? Of course he wants revenge. If he can't, then he can vent his anger. Anyway, Celestial Monkey is not a good person. Could it be that Celestial Monkey stole your things? Do you think Celestial Monkey steals everything? What does Old Fong have that is worth Celestial Monkey stealing? Even if you ask him to steal, he won't bother. Nonsense. I haven't been stolen, but a friend of mine was stolen by a Celestial Monkey. The jade goddess of mercy that has been passed down to my family. Then has your friend seen what a Celestial Monkey looks like? No. Then how did he know it was stolen by the Celestial Monkey? Other than his Qigong, who could steal the jade guanine hidden in the secret room without a sound? That might not be the case. In any case, it's pretty close. Chu Li listened to their verbal arguments and shook his head to himself. It seemed that most of the Celestial Monkey's reputation was based on false rumors. Out of the 10 things, he might have only done 1 or 2. The rest were forced upon him by the others. Once the omniscient mirror was activated, everything within a 3-mile radius appeared in his mind. The long white cloth fluttered in the wind. The sunrise tower was already brightly lit. The cinnabar on the white cloth was even more conspicuous under the light than during the day. It could be seen from anywhere in the city. Chu Li took a sip of the wine and slowly chewed on a piece of beef. If the Celestial Monkey really wanted to take action, it would either be when there were many people around or when there was no one around. The best time was when there were a lot of people. He could fish in troubled waters. As time passed, the night grew darker. The sunrise tower became more and more lively. In the brightly lit restaurant, there was a burst of noise and music, and even laughter. Chu Li glanced at the few tables around him and saw that they had all called for singers. They listened to the music while they ate and drank. It was a very enjoyable experience. Chu Li sat alone by the window and drank by himself. It was a little eye-catching. However, others saw that he was wearing brocade clothes and had a noble and graceful temperament. It was obvious that he was not an ordinary person. No one provoked him. Look, what's written on it? Someone suddenly stopped in front of the sunrise tower and pointed at the white cloth. The people around looked up and just noticed the words on the white cloth. Chu Li shook his head. Most people usually did not look up at the sky, especially the signboard of the sunrise tower. The tall building itself was the signboard. More and more people gathered below. There was a lot of discussion. Chu Li smiled. The crowd gathered too quickly. There was something strange. It seemed that someone was manipulating it. It should be Jiang Kuai's action. People had the habit of joining in on the fun. They gathered in groups of 2s and 3s, pointing and discussing who had done this. It was a disgrace to the cultured. The Sunrise restaurant had actually given up its signboard. The merchants pursued profits to such an extent. It was really despicable. Swoosh! A light whistled. A stream of light shot towards the white cloth in the air. People screamed and ran in all directions. The 20-meter-long pole, as thick as a baby's arm, was slowly falling down. If it hit someone, it could crush them to death. No one wanted to take it. Fortunately, the pole was long enough. It fell slowly and finally hit the roof of a house next to it. It was held up, and the white cloth with the words on it fell to the ground. Chu Li's gaze focused and saw the person who did it. A slender young man flicked a small stone with his finger and broke the arm-thick pole. The power of this flick was really amazing. He sighed. It was obviously a unique martial art. The young man looked valiant. He sneered and glanced at the white cloth. Then, he mixed into the crowd and ran out with the crowd. Chu Li stared at him, but did not forget to pay attention to his surroundings. Under the omniscient mirror, every face and the subtle expressions on their faces were presented in his mind. Other than the valiant young man, there was nothing unusual about the others. Chu Li observed the image in the valiant young man's mind. He was suddenly stunned, and his expression changed slightly. The people on the third floor swarmed in front of the window and looked down at the chaos below. They were amazed and disgusted. It was strange. How could a good signboard fall down? It was too dangerous. Some people thought that it must be God who could not stand it, so the signboard was scraped off. Some people thought that it was a coincidence. The Sunrise Tower had been around for 50 years. The signboard should be changed. No matter how thick the pole was, it was weathered by wind and rain. It would not be long before it fell today. Chu Li watched the young man's actions in his mind. Suddenly, he disappeared from the table. The valiant young man left the Sunrise Tower with the crowd and mixed into the crowd on the street. Finally, after a few turns, he entered a winding alley. The alley was quiet. The bluestone road shone with a green light under a string of lanterns. Chu Li suddenly appeared 10 meters behind the valiant young man and shouted, "Jiang Kuai." The valiant young man paused and then continued to walk. Chu Li raised his voice and said, "Jiang Kuai, what did you do with the things from the public house?" The valiant young man's expression changed slightly, but he kept walking forward as if he did not hear him. Soon, he disappeared at the corner of the alley. Chu Li's mouth showed a smile. Who would have thought that the celestial monkey looked so dignified? He did not look like a monkey at all. No one would believe that he was the celestial monkey when he walked on the street. The wonders of the world were often unexpected. He saw the location of the longevity grass in Jiang Kuai's mind. He breathed a sigh of relief and thanked God. Fortunately, the celestial monkey was a smart person. The longevity grass was still there, but he only saw a secret room in his mind. He did not know where the secret room was. He had to ask a few more questions. Chapter 132. Chu Li once again appeared 10 meters behind Jiang Kuai and raised his voice. "Where is the longevity grass hidden?" Jiang Kuai suddenly turned around and stared at him coldly. "Who are you?" Chu Li smiled. "Chu Li from the public house." "I don't," Jiang Kuai said coldly. "Celestial monkey Jiang Kuai." Chu Li smiled and said, "I didn't expect the famous celestial monkey Jiang Kuai to be you." "Me?" Jiang Kuai pointed at himself. "Celestial monkey?" Chu Li nodded. Jiang Kuai laughed out loud. "Ridiculous." Chu Li said, "The longevity grass is a hot potato. I'm sure you don't want to keep it, right?" The eldest young master has already said that if you hand over the longevity grass, we can let bygones be bygones. From now on, we won't interfere with each other's business. We can treat it as if nothing happened. I don't understand what you're saying. Jiang Kuai shook his head. You've mistaken me for someone else. Goodbye. Chu Li smiled. Brother Jiang, why are you in such a hurry to leave? He took out a white jade waist tag and tossed it over. Look at this, it's my waist tag. Jiang Kuai waved his sleeves and rolled up the white jade waist tag. He took it into his hand and glanced at it. He shook his head. I don't recognize it. Is this the waist tag of the public house? Chu Li grinned and said, Brother Jiang is an expert, so of course you'll recognize it. Why are you still pretending to be ignorant? I didn't expect Brother Jiang to be proficient in the bone shrinking technique. When you're fighting, use the bone shrinking technique first and recover afterwards. Others won't be able to recognize you. The bone shrinking technique not only shrank the body, but also the face. It changed the bones in the entire body. More often than not, when a person became fat, others would not be able to recognize them. The changes in their bones were even more difficult to recognize. Moreover, no one would think about it from this perspective. Jiang Kuai's face darkened. He glared at Chu Li and gripped the white jade waist tag tightly, as if he was going to crush it. This was his biggest secret. Other than himself, even his own woman did not know. Who exactly was this surnamed Chu? He actually knew this secret. The High Duke's public house was indeed full of hidden talents. It must have been deduced by someone with great intelligence. Chu Li saw that his eyes were flickering. At times, he was filled with killing intent, and at other times, he was hesitant. He knew that he was in a dilemma. He laughed. Brother Jiang wants to kill me to silence me? He had completely fallen out with the house of High Duke. There's no turning back? The High Duke's public house is nothing. Jiang Kuai scoffed. Chu Li chuckled. To the four major sects, the High Duke's public house was indeed nothing to worry about. However, to the normal sects, the High Duke's public house was a colossus that could not be resisted. For someone like Jiang Kuai who fought alone, the public house would not provoke him if they could. Although Jiang Kuai's light body technique was superb, he was not an otherworldly person. He also had friends and relatives. If he really went against the High Duke's public house, the forces of the High Duke's public house could not kill him, but they could deal with his relatives. Moreover, he had already offended the Ren public house. If he offended another one, he would not be able to live. Chu Li saw through Jiang Kuai. It was a pleasant surprise, but it had a fatal weakness. Previously, Jiang Kuai was extremely daring. He relied on his top-notch light body technique to run amok and offended too many people, especially the Ren public house. He had always been chased by the Ren public house. Jiang Kuai was different now. He had a wife, and he loved her very much. His heart was restrained, and he was worried about his wife's safety. He had been hunted by the Ren public house for 2 years. He had experienced the power of the House of High Dukes. They had eyes and ears everywhere. Even if his light body technique was superb, he still had to hide. He could not get rid of the entanglement of the Ren public house. He was fine with it, but his wife had to follow him in fear, which made him deeply miserable. A hero's spirit was short, and love was the grave of a hero. He, a lone hero, had also become weak. Such a rare opportunity. Of course, Chu Li would not let it go. He attacked wave after wave to destroy his fighting spirit and make him join the High Duke's public house. It was easy to kill him, but it was even harder to make him join the High Duke's public house to strengthen the strength of the High Duke's public house. A master with top-notch light body technique like Jiang Kuai was very useful. It was far more important than an ordinary innate master. Sometimes, it was even more important than a grandmaster. What are you laughing at? Jiang Kuai said coldly. Chu Li said, the world is big, but there is no place to stay. Relatively speaking, the High Duke's public house is the safest. Brother Jiang Kuai, you can settle your family in the High Duke's public house, and you will have no worries. You're recruiting me? Jiang Kuai laughed. Chu Li nodded. As a rank 4, I have the right to recruit masters into the public house. Become the High Duke's public house's lackey. Jiang Kuai scoffed. Lackey? Chu Li laughed. People who live in this world are all lackeys. The disciples of the famous factions have to listen to the faction. The commoners have to listen to the imperial court, and even the lonely have to serve their own desires. Who can truly be free? What nonsense! Jiang Kuai sneered in disdain. Chu Li said, gains and losses are one. There are gains and losses. It's good to enjoy the shade under a big tree. Since you want to enjoy the shade, how can you not pay? If you enter the High Duke's public house, you will lose your freedom, but you can protect your family. Isn't it worth it to pay? Jiang Kuai sneered without saying a word. Chu Li continued, if you are alone, you can come and go as you please. Indeed, you are free. But you have a family. How can you be free? You have enemies all over the world. Is there no one who can find you and take revenge on your family? Jiang Kuai's face turned pale. This sentence hit the nail on the head. In your situation, the famous factions will not accept you. Chu Li shook his head. It's harder to enter the High Duke's public house than the famous factions. Without the recommendation of rank 4 and above, it's impossible to enter the High Duke's public house. To tell you the truth, I just became the chief of the first courtyard. I need my own confidant. If it's someone else, I'll just kill them directly. Why bother talking? Jiang Kuai squinted at Chu Li and sneered. Kill? What can you do to me? Chu Li shook his head and laughed. You think I can't do anything to you? So, I have no choice but to recruit you? As soon as he finished speaking, he disappeared from the spot and appeared behind Jiang Kuai. Jiang Kuai suddenly moved horizontally. It was extremely fast. Chu Li took a step and appeared behind him again. Jiang Kuai moved horizontally again, and Chu Li took another step to catch up. Jiang Kuai's heart skipped a beat. He pushed his speed to the limit and floated up the wall like a wisp of smoke. He flew past each wall and each house. Under the clear moonlight, he was like a shadow that swept past. His figure could not be seen clearly. He ran 100 miles in one breath, out of Min State Town, and came to a forest. He stopped on a pine tree and smiled proudly. He suddenly froze, and his shoulder was patted lightly. Chu Li's voice came from behind. Brother Jiang, Kuai really has a good light body technique. Jiang Kuai turned around as if he saw a ghost and stared at Chu Li. There was someone in the world who had a better light body technique than him. His light body technique was naturally formed. He ate a strange fruit, and his body was as light as a feather. The light body technique that he cultivated was not the best, but his speed was extremely fast. No one could match him. Chu Li's light body technique was faster than his. How is it possible? Let me remind you, if we can find you, the Rin public house can too. You better run away immediately. I'll take the longevity grass back first. Chu Li pointed at the waist tag in his hand. If you think it through, bring this waist tag to the High Duke's public house to find me. If you don't want to come, it's up to you. You can use this waist tag to ask the High Duke's public house for help once. You? Jiang Kuai frowned. Chu Li waved his hand and disappeared in a flash. Jiang Kuai's face was gloomy, and he was deep in thought. To take the longevity grass back, did they find the place where he hid it? Or was it a trick? Once he ran back, he would take the opportunity to appear and snatch the longevity grass? He hesitated. In the end, he felt that the place where he hid the longevity grass was extremely secretive. Only he knew about it. No matter how powerful the E-public house was, they would not be able to find it. They would not fall into his trap. But what if they really found it? Handing it over was completely different from them finding it. Chapter 133. After struggling for a long time, Jiang Kuai finally decided to go and have a look. He glided up the mountain and came to a small valley. Then, he pressed twice on the moss-covered stone wall. Boom! A hole appeared in the stone wall. He leaned in and soon came to a stone room about 20 square meters. He had a total of 12 stone chambers like this, where he kept all the things he had stolen over the years. Some were priceless antiques, and some were exquisite and rare tools. He stole some of them because he wanted to exchange them for silver, and some purely because he liked to play with them. With the light body technique that allowed him to dominate the world, he had no scruples in doing things. If he wanted to rob, he would rob, and he only robbed from those rich families. He glanced at the secret room. It did not seem like anyone had touched it. He turned his head abruptly and saw that no one was following him. In the middle of the stone room was a dark purple wooden cabinet. It looked like a medicine cabinet in a medicine shop with many small drawers. He opened the small drawer in the middle, and his face suddenly changed. The drawer that contained the longevity grass was empty. He widened his eyes in disbelief and quickly opened the rest of the drawers. The jewelry was all there, but there was no longevity grass in all the drawers. Of course, he would not forget the longevity grass. He remembered clearly that it was in the drawer in the middle. He glanced around, and there was no trace of anyone coming. Could it be that the longevity grass had legs and ran away by itself? He felt that it was ridiculous. Suddenly, he found a line of small words at the bottom of the drawer. He quickly focused his energy on his eyes. Take the longevity grass. Don't miss Chu. Jiang Kuai's face was pale. He thought that his light body technique was the best in the world. He did not expect that there would be someone stronger than him. Chu Li's light body technique was far better than his. What was even more chilling was that no one else knew about this secret room except him. How did Chu Li know? Could it be that he had always been by his side and he did not notice? Thinking of this, he suddenly shouted, "Chu Li, come out." His voice rumbled in the stone room. "Sneaky, despicable behavior," Jiang Kuai shouted. After a long while, there was still no movement. Jiang Kuai judged that Chu Li must have taken the longevity grass and returned to the public house to receive the reward. The longevity grass had a lifespan of 60 years. When he saw the ferric demon Ridge fighting with a group of people, he joined in the fun and snatched the thing back. He immediately regretted it. His hand was too cheap and caused big trouble. The longevity grass of the public house, the second Lady Co Shi, the first beauty of the great Ji dynasty. Of course, he knew that Co Shi was weak and sickly. He also knew that the moment he saw the longevity grass, he knew that it was for Co Shi. If he swallowed the longevity grass, the public house would definitely go crazy. Even the entire Ji dynasty would go crazy. No matter how powerful he was, he would not be able to escape. So he resisted the temptation and kept the longevity grass. Jiang Kuai smashed a jade bowl into pieces. He was extremely unhappy. Whether the longevity grass was returned by one's own hands or if it was snatched away, it was a completely different matter. This was the escape route that he had left for himself, but now it had been intercepted by Chu Li. He was wary of Chu Li. When he recalled Chu Li's last words, his expression changed, and he quickly flew out of the secret chamber. The most important thing now was to escape to a faraway place. If the public house could find him, the Ren public house might be able to. The Ren public house was stronger than the public house and was more difficult to deal with. Like a gust of wind, he floated into a small residence in the city and landed in the courtyard. It was already late at night, and the house was quiet. He heard the soft breathing sound in the bedroom and let out a sigh of relief. He slowly opened the door and went in. "Husband," a gentle voice came from the bed. "You Ting, sleep," Jiang Kuai said softly. He took off his outer shirt and went to bed. In the dark, a soft and fragrant body went into his arms. "Husband, why did you come back so late?" "I drank too much." Jiang Kuai patted her shoulder and let out a sigh of relief. "You Ting, let's move tomorrow." Yu Ting responded softly. Jiang Kuai listened to her gentle answer and did not ask why. He felt even more guilty. He knew that Yu Ting liked quiet and peaceful life. She hated the days of wandering, fighting, and hiding, but he could not do it. He was ashamed to be a man. Listening to her soft breathing, Jiang Kuai said softly, "Let's find a deep mountain and live in the forest." Yu Ting replied softly, "As long as I'm with husband, it doesn't matter where we go." Sigh. Jiang Kuai felt even more guilty. Yu Ting leaned into his arms and said softly, "Husband, don't worry, I'm fine. Someone came to recruit me today." Jiang Kuai sighed. "They're from public house. They wanted to work for them." Yu Ting was stunned. "Why would the public house recruit you?" "They're interested in my light body technique," Jiang Kuai said. "Once you enter the public house, it'll be like the ocean." "Forget it," Yu Ting said. Jiang Kuai said, "If I work for the public house, you can live in the public house. You don't have to be afraid anymore. You can live a stable life." Working for the public house is also very dangerous. Yu Ting said, "You can't ignore an order. If you offend someone, you might die at any time." Jiang Kuai shook his head and said, "My light body technique is the best. They won't let me die. I know that husband is used to being free and can't stand being restrained." Yu Ting said softly, "Don't let yourself suffer because of me." The more she said that, the more guilty Jiang Kuai felt. Bang, bang. Suddenly, there was a knock on the door. Jiang Kuai was shocked. He hugged Yu Ting and floated up. "Who is it?" "Brother Jiang Kuai, it's me." Chu Li's voice came from outside. "I just wanted to inform you that your whereabouts have been exposed. The people from the Ren public house are rushing over here. It's best if you leave now." Jiang Kuai let out a sigh of relief and said in a deep voice, "Wait." He directly walked out of the bedroom in his undergarments. He opened the door and saw Chu Li standing quietly at the door. The moonlight shone on his face. Jiang Kuai scoffed. How did you know? Chu Li smiled. The public house's eyes and ears are very sharp. If you don't leave now, you won't be able to. They can't stop me. Jiang Kuai scoffed. Chu Li shook his head. I saw them holding a few big nets. I guess they want to catch you. Jiang Kuai's expression changed slightly. Chu Li said, there is no such thing as an invincible person. They found a way to restrain your light body technique. Jiang Kuai scoffed. What is your intention? I'm just helping you to make up your mind. Chu Li smiled and nodded to the beautiful woman who had already put on her clothes and was leisurely approaching. This must be Madame Jiang, right? You're really beautiful. Su Yuding was beautiful. She was tall, had long legs, a thin waist, and a full chest. She was graceful and graceful. Her appearance did not lose to Chen Ying and the others. Of course, she was still slightly inferior to Shao Qi and Xue Ling, but she was already a rare beauty. Jiang Kuai frowned and looked at him. Chu Li said, let's leave this place first. If you don't believe me, we can watch from afar. Okay, Jiang Kuai said. He carried Su Yuding and floated up. They landed on the roof of a house not far away. He lay on the red tiles and looked around. Soon, he saw 8 men in black appeared. They were divided into 4 directions and gathered towards the house where he was. There were 2 people in each group. They held a ball of silver fishnet in their hands. Under the moonlight, it was obviously a specially made fishnet. You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.